Chapter 303. Ha! Cui Yingying felt a bit disappointed when she saw Emily busying himself in the coffee shop and stealing food. Originally, Emily was a difficult child to get close to. Should she say that he was too childish or that his values were different from normal people? In short, there weren't many people in school who were close to Emily. In fact, even Cui Yingying was a bit afraid of Emily in the beginning. But after a series of events, she and Emily inexplicably became close friends. Although most of the time she was just helping Emily take the blame and clean up after him. Speaking of which, Cui Yingying couldn't remember the key events of her and Emily's intimacy, as if a part of her memory was missing. But over time she got used to it. However, she didn't know if it was because of the recent increase in guests at Sakura Apartments, but Emily seemed to have changed and was different from before. Should she say that he seemed more lively than before or that his expressions were more lively? If it was before, she would have refused to participate in this kind of activity because she thought it was too troublesome. The girl thought absent-mindedly. At this time, something cold was suddenly pressed against her face, causing her to stand up in surprise. Emily. She turned around and saw that it was Emily holding a sundae. A gift. Emily stuffed the sundae into Cui Yingying's hands and quickly ran away. But even though the maid coffee shop was extremely popular, Emily didn't seem to want to go in and help. Instead, he secretly stayed near the fridge as if he wanted to steal some ice cream. Yep, he's still the normal Emily. After confirming that Emily didn't become diligent, Cui Yingying found herself strangely happy. She stuck out her tongue, feeling a bit shy about her unexplained happiness. Not only that, it was probably because he saw her sitting there doing nothing that Emily specially brought her a sundae. It was obviously just a small favor, but Cui Yingying felt very happy in her heart. This kind of feeling was probably similar to a parent's feeling of, "Aw, my child has finally grown up," after hearing their child say to them that it had been hard on him. But Emily's maid outfit is really cute, Cui Yingying thought to herself as she ate the sundae. As she thought about it, she suddenly remembered that she seemed to have picked up a ring on the side of the road. Since he had nothing to do, he might as well put the ring in the lost and found office. With that in mind, she took out the ring from her pocket. Although the ring looked rather plain, it had a peculiar charm that seemed to make people unable to help but fall in love with it. If Emily were to wear this ring, it would definitely fit him, right? Also, Emily is still in maid attire. Maid attire is actually quite pretty. Just as she was thinking about this, Su Xinxing happened to pass by. Because the girl occasionally came to Sakura's apartment to play, Su Xinxing was not a stranger to her. Yingying, you also bought a maid outfit?" Su Xinxing looked at the girl in surprise. Then he shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "Forget it, it must be that brat Emily who forced you to buy it. Tell me how much it costs later, I'll pay you back later." After he finished speaking, he shook his head and left with a dejected mushroom-haired girl. Maid outfit. Because Su Xinxing left in a hurry, Cui Yingying didn't even get to say a word to him. She muttered strangely, "What maid outfit?" While she didn't understand, Cui Yingying subconsciously wanted to put the ring back in her pocket. Then she suddenly realized that something was wrong. Her pocket was missing. To be precise, her current clothes didn't have pockets. She didn't know when, but her ordinary clothes had turned into a maid outfit that was exactly the same as Emily's. How is this possible? She stood there in a daze for a long time, completely unaware of when her clothes had changed. However, after thinking about it for a while, she realized that the only time her clothes changed was the time she took out the ring and put it back. No, to be precise, when Su Xinxing passed by just now, her clothes should have changed. Thinking about it this way, the most suspicious thing was no doubt the ring on the girl's hand. Could it be that this ring can help people change clothes? Cui Yingying was curious about this. So she found a deserted corner. It was a bit difficult to do this in Jiangjin University with so many people coming and going, but at least she found an unused classroom with spare tables and chairs. So she hid in the corner of the room and began to experiment. Bubble skirt. Holding the ring in her hand, the girl put her fist on her chest, closed her eyes, and thought in her heart as if she was making a wish. When she opened her eyes, she found that the clothes on her body had really changed into a bubble skirt that she had wanted for a long time, but didn't buy because it wasn't practical and was too expensive. That's amazing. The girl's eyes lit up, and then she continued to use the ring to change her clothes. But although the game of changing clothes was interesting, if the person changing clothes was herself and there was no dressing mirror, she would probably get tired of it after a while. At least Cui Yingying was like this. Although it's interesting but this kind of incredible thing, it's better to find a way to return it to the owner. When she thought of some literary works where the protagonist was involved in a storm because he picked up some magical things and ended up eating them, the girl made a wise decision. She didn't think that she had the luck of turning misfortune into blessings like the main character in those stories. And it might even affect her father and Emily, who had a good relationship with her. I don't want people to know that I picked this up. It's better to send it to the lost and found office. The girl sighed and used the ring to change her clothes back to her original appearance. Then she began to recall the map of Jiangjin University that she had seen on the board. Where's the lost and found office again? As soon as she finished speaking, she appeared in front of a small room with a sign that said Lost and Found Office. The girl, who was still in shock, looked around. Fortunately, it seemed that no one was paying attention to her, otherwise things would be bad. Wiping the cold sweat on her forehead, the girl quietly left the place. Not far away, a somewhat rustic-looking boy glanced at them. "Tuwa, what's wrong?" asked a person who seemed to be his classmate. "Nothing." The boy called Tuwa shook his head and subconsciously touched the hard object hidden under his clothes at his waist. "I probably saw wrong." Chapter 304. Her consciousness gradually returned to her body. Yuezhing Ningning slowly opened her eyes. "Oh, you're finally awake, partner." The voice of the wizard Hat Sereno, who had led her into the world of magic and had been by her side all this time, rang in her ears. "Sereno." The girl suddenly woke up. "What about the holy ring? What happened to the holy ring? Did I get the holy ring in the end?" "Unfortunately, partner, there was a problem in the end and the holy ring fell into this world. What's worse is that the magic factor in this world is very rare, and the amount of magic in the atmosphere is pitifully low. I'm afraid that we can no longer use large-scale magic in this world." "That's really bad. Is it blank mode?" The girl shook her ears and tried to calm herself down. Blank mode was the state that a girl would be in when she had just become a magical girl because she had not yet mastered the power within. Could be said that it was her weakest state. "It's worse than that, but compared to the other bad news it's not bad," Sereno said with a "I'm sorry" tone. "The other bad news?" Yuezhing Ningning wagged her tail and asked curiously. Then she realized something was wrong. Why was she able to shake her ears and wag her tail? "It seems that you have no recollection of the situation when you came to this world." The wizard Hat sighed pretentiously, even though it did not have an organ like a mouth. "At that time it was really bad. Due to overexertion, your magic device was damaged to varying degrees. After you came to this world, due to the lack of magic supply around you, your body showed signs of severe magic overdraft. Do you know what that means?" Yuezhing Ningning did not answer. Although she had never encountered such a situation before, after all, one of her natural abilities was to subconsciously gather the magic in the atmosphere to quickly restore her own magic. But when she fought against the nightmares, she had seen the symptoms of magic overdraft of other magical girls. Their bodies would strangely crystallize, and if they did not replenish their magic in time, the crystallized body parts would turn into powder and fall to the ground. Could it be that he was in the same situation now? "Although I've tried my best to retrieve your body, it's very difficult to collect it because it fell from a high altitude. Moreover, I'm not a magic device that can move freely, so the amount I can collect is very limited." Sereno continued in his apologetic tone. "In the end, I had no choice but to do this to save your life. What have I become?" Yuezhing Ningning couldn't help but worry. Sereno didn't say anything. Instead, he shook his hand and summoned a mirror that floated in front of the girl. There was a Xiaohei cat in the mirror. She was wearing a cute pointy sorcerer's hat. Her eyes were wide open as she stared at the mirror. Her fur stood on end as if she was frightened. Even her tail was standing straight up. You must be joking." Yuezhing Ningning's entire body, the entire cat, was frozen in shock. "Don't worry. Although you've turned into a cat, you still have your magic power and spellcasting ability. Moreover, if you can find the holy ring, all of this can be easily solved." The sorcerer's hat tried to comfort her. "Although it's only my estimation, the holy ring's power is probably enough to reshape the entire earth. It won't be difficult to revive the others and restore you to your original state." Fortunately, Ningning had faced despair before and had even saved the entire human race. Her mental fortitude wasn't that weak and she quickly adjusted her state of mind. "Is the holy ring that powerful?" She shifted her attention to the other side, and stopped herself from thinking about the fact that she had turned into a cat. Speaking of which, what kind of existence is the destroyer of worlds? Just a trace of his consciousness left behind can create the 3 great calamities, 7 calamities, and the holy ring, something so incredible, I don't know. What a straightforward answer. Nonsense, because I'm just a hat that belonged to my original owner. I only gained consciousness after my owner sacrificed himself to resist the thought of the destroyer of worlds. Of course, I don't know anything about the destroyer of worlds. The hat replied matter-of-factly. How much hope do you have for a hat? Ningning was speechless and sighed. Then where is the holy ring? Don't tell me you don't know. If that's the case, the world is so big I don't want to explore it in the form of a cat. Thanks to the thin magic in this world, I can barely feel the approximate location of the holy ring. After all, that's what I use it for. However, because of the thin magic, I can only feel the approximate location. You'll have to find a way to find it yourself. It's okay as long as you can feel it. Ningning was rather optimistic. Anyway, I'm already used to this kind of troublesome situation. She didn't know why, but many times things that were simple at the beginning would become inexplicably complicated and troublesome as long as the girl took action. After they got to know each other better, Ling even joked with her that Ningning had the constitution of a protagonist who would easily cause trouble and get involved in it. I don't want such a troublesome constitution. Ningning's heart ached when she thought of Ling's final smile in the magic flames. To be honest, compared to whether or not we can find the holy ring, I'm more worried that the holy ring will be found by ordinary people. Sereno's voice became slightly more serious. What's wrong? Is there a limit to the number of wishes one can make? Ningning asked curiously. No, as long as the holy ring's magic hasn't been exhausted, or its stability hasn't disappeared, in other words, it hasn't expired, it can always fulfill the wishes of the holder, the hat said seriously. The hat said seriously, the problem is that only a magical girl can make a wish with the right posture. If an ordinary person casually made a wish, their own desires would easily trigger the evil thoughts in the holy ring that had already been purified, causing the holy ring to once again experience the 3 calamities and 7 calamities. The mana in this world is too thin, and the possibility of a powerful existence or an existence like a magical girl is extremely low. And from what I've seen so far, this world is at most similar to our world. Let alone the 3 calamities, even the 7 calamities that suddenly erupt would be difficult to deal with. I understand. In other words, we have to find the holy ring before it's discovered, right? Ningning took a deep breath. Then there's no time to dilly-dally. Let's go. When Xiaohei the cat pulled herself together and walked out of the alley, she bumped into a little girl in a dress. A strange Xiaohei the cat. The girl's eyes lit up as she approached Ningning with interest. The magical girl who had turned into a cat didn't know how to react. You're still wearing a hat, Chiketsu, don't run around. Behind the little girl, a girl in a maid's uniform said softly, follow me, I'll bring you to Su Shenxing. Chapter 305. Song Yu. Sister, you don't have to send me off. I know where brother's school is, Chiketsu said helplessly as he turned around and hugged the black cat that he had caught with much difficulty. No, Chiketsu, you just moved here not long ago. What if you get lost? That's why I have to send you off. Song Yu said firmly. Then she looked at the black cat worriedly. Also, I think it's better not to catch wild cats. It'll be troublesome if you get bitten or scratched. As someone who had seen supernatural beings and was almost hurt by them, Song Yu naturally knew that there were some strange creatures in Jiangjin. No matter how she looked at it, this black cat wearing a hat did not look like a creature that would appear under normal circumstances. So she tried to persuade the little girl. It's okay. Look, isn't it obedient? Chiketsu held up the black cat like it was a treasure and shook it in front of Song Yu. This made Song Yu worried that her actions would provoke the strange cat. In addition, this scene also reminded Song Yu of the cat that she had picked up some time ago. Unfortunately, not long after she changed the cat's clothes, it went missing. Song Yu was disappointed for a long time. Fortunately, the black cat seemed to be pretending to be dead. It did not move at all and looked very obedient. Just when Song Yu was still hesitating, Chiketsu laughed like a little devil, and Sister Song Yu, instead of saying that you want to send me off, you just want to see brother, right? That's not it. Song Yu's face turned red and she subconsciously refuted. But then she realized that her reaction was too intense. It was as if she had confessed without being pressed. Chiketsu let out a pigeon-like laugh. then carried the black cat and ran quickly towards Jiangjin University. Really? Song Yu had no choice but to quicken her pace and follow. At this time Yuezhing Ningning was in a rather awkward situation. Because he wasn't familiar with the cat's body, he couldn't react in time and was caught by Chiketsu. Although her body had turned into that of a cat, Ningning was still a magical girl. Her basic stamina was much stronger than a normal little girl like Chiketsu. If she was determined to escape, she could easily break free from the girl's embrace. There were two reasons why she didn't do that. First, it was easy to hurt Ichiyue if she struggled too hard. Although Lujing Ningning was troubled by the current situation, it wasn't enough to make her hurt an innocent person. Second, there was a translucent English fold lying on Ichiyue's shoulder. Its big cat eyes were staring at Ningning. It was a guardian spirit. Although it wasn't common, Ningning, who was a magical girl, had seen this kind of creature before. Most of them were relatively kind. They could protect their host from being affected by supernatural forces that were judged as malicious. They also wouldn't cause any hindrance to their host's life. After the power of their soul was exhausted, they would naturally disappear. However, most of the guardian spirits that Yuezhing Ningning had encountered in the past were formed after the death of their loved ones. After all, as the spirit of all things, human souls could exist in the world of the living for much longer than ordinary beasts. Occasionally she would see a canine guardian spirit, but this was the first time she saw a cat as a guardian spirit. Not only that, although they didn't fight, Yuezhing Ningning inexplicably felt a strong sense of danger from the cat. This meant that the cat guardian spirit might be a great threat to her. Theoretically speaking, this was impossible. Most guardian spirits were basically the remnant souls of the dead. They weren't that strong when they were alive, let alone after death. It was because of the existence of the cat guardian spirit that Yuezhing Ningning didn't have the confidence to break free from it without hurting the little girl. Therefore she could only obediently lie in the little girl's arms. Sereno, stop pretending to be dead. Hurry up and think of a way. Fortunately, her connection with her magic device wasn't interrupted. Yuezhing Ningning desperately tried to speak to the wizard hat. I have good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? After a moment of silence, Sereno asked his little master in return. Good news first and bad news later will make you feel bad, so listen to the bad news first. Yuezhing Ningning thought for a moment and immediately replied. The bad news is that my previous prediction was wrong. Although the magic power in this world is very low, it seems that there are some unbelievably powerful creatures. You mean the cat guardian spirit on the little girl's shoulder that is staring at me? Not only that, but the pearl necklace on the girl's neck also has a mysterious energy that I can't analyze. Although I don't know what it's used for, if that energy is released, I'm afraid it can directly create a basin on the plains. I'm afraid that the shellfish that gave birth to the pearl itself is an incredible monster. Sereno clicked his tongue. Although as a hat he didn't have a tongue. But if the pearl of such a powerful creature can be taken... Ningning was in disbelief. That's right. In other words, there are at least powerful creatures that are stronger than those monsters in this world. I knew that the provincial environment wouldn't come to a low magic world for no reason. After hearing the hat's words, Yuezhing Ningning fell silent. The more powerful the creatures in this world, the more difficult it would be to retrieve the holy ring. After thinking for a long time, she continued to ask the hat. Then what about the good news you were talking about? If I were to say that the good news is that I saw a nice hat shop earlier and that the pink lady's hat hanging in the window is my type. I'll throw you to Old Wang's dog as a toy. By the way, Old Wang was Ningning's neighbor, and he had a husky that was full of energy all year round. The husky's favorite activity was to make Old Wang's house look like a thief, and then pretend to be innocent and lie under the bed. Even after applying powder from his favorite dog food brand. Okay, I'm just kidding. Sereno seemed to imagine the consequences of doing that and couldn't help but shiver. Then he said in a pleasant tone, actually, you just have to pretend to be a normal cat now. Why? Because if I'm not mistaken, the destination of their trip seems to be the general location of the holy ring that I sensed earlier. 1/3. Chapter 306. The ring that she picked up was not as simple as being able to change clothes at will, but it could grant any wish. Cui Yingying ran back to the empty classroom. After a series of experiments, she finally confirmed the true ability of the ring to a certain extent. At the moment she was surrounded by all kinds of snacks, beautiful clothes, cute stuffed animals and a squirrel that was stepping on a wheel. After hesitating for a moment, she made another wish to make all those things disappear. Her father often warned her that there was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. Anything that could be obtained without working for it was basically not a good thing. So in fact, after Cui Yingying confirmed that the ring could grant wishes, the first thing that came to her mind was not to use it to do a series of earth-shattering things, nor did she think of using it to make herself rich and powerful. Instead, she began to think about whether this thing would be harmful. For example, if she wished to eat something, would it not be able to create food out of thin air, but would it be able to draw nearby food that met the conditions in front of her? Although at first glance there seemed to be no difference between the two to the girl, it was very important. The former was a pure wish-granting machine without any sequelae. The latter was a grafting of her own desire onto the loss of others. It did not create matter out of thin air and was beyond the scope of physics. It could only be regarded as a means to benefit oneself at the expense of others. This ring could not be considered a wish-granting machine, but a simple transporter. Although the process was different based on the previous wishes, it was no different from the actions of a thief. This was not impossible because from the previous wishes, the sudden appearance of things was no different from the situation where Cui Yingying was teleported to the lost and found office. They were both things that could be achieved by teleportation. Because of this, when the girl wished to make those things disappear, she did not directly use the phrase, make them disappear, but let them return to their original place. In the end it worked. This made Cui Yingying think that the ring's ability was likely to be the second type, which was to benefit oneself at the expense of others. Of course, there was no way to confirm this with just a sentence. The girl was just guessing. However, it was not difficult to verify her guess. She just needed to make a wish that could not be fulfilled from a purely physical point of view and see if it could be fulfilled. For example, the resurrection of the dead. If it could bring the dead back to life, then the power of the ring would not just be a simple transporter, but a true treasure that could grant wishes. As for the resurrection candidates, Mom, Cui Yingying came from a single-parent family. Her mother died in an accident when she was a child. After her mother's death, her father did not remarry. Instead, he began to indulge in work. She did not know if he was really busy with work or if he simply wanted to use work to numb himself. Not long after her mother passed away, Cui Yingying began to take over the household chores at a young age. She never resented her father. After all, she was able to live a relatively prosperous life all because of her father's hard work. Moreover, her father didn't abandon her. Every once in a while he would find time to go home and accompany Cui Yingying. Cui Yingying had always felt that she was very happy compared to some families that were even more miserable. However, this did not prevent her from envying other children who had mothers. She envied them for being able to enjoy the taste of motherly love at all times, and for being able to enjoy the care of their mothers. If only his mother had survived that accident, how great would that have been? Sometimes Cui Yingying would think that too. However, in the past these thoughts were just pure dreams. The saying that the dead cannot be brought back to life wasn't just for show. However, today there was an incredible opportunity in front of her. Cui Yingying did not have any desire for material things or money. However, she only wanted to be cared for by others. She wanted to be able to feel warmth. This was something she had always yearned for. Therefore, when she had just met Jasmine, even though she had clearly been disgraced by the other party's rude requests, she had still stayed by Jasmine's side. It was also because she had felt that Jasmine valued her. I'm really a greedy person. Cui Yingying gripped the ring tightly with both hands. Then she placed it on her forehead and silently made a wish in her heart. If you can please, if it's possible, I really hope that the person who picked up the holy ring only wishes for material things and money. Sereno was still teaching Yuezhing Ningning about the holy ring. No, even if they wish for power or something like that, it won't affect this world too much. However, if they wish for something that goes against the laws of nature, then we'll be in big trouble. Against the laws of nature? Yuezhing Ningning asked curiously, is it something like reversing the seasons? That counts, but to be more specific, it's something like stopping time or bringing back the dead. Wait, Sereno, didn't you say that the holy ring can bring the dead back to life? Yuezhing Ningning's mind was in a mess. Why now? I'm not lying. If we were still in our world, the holy ring could indeed bring the dead back to life. After all, The holy ring itself is the sublimation of the collective will of the people in that world. Sereno replied in a deep voice. The problem is that this world isn't our world. Meow. Yuezhing Ningning let out a cry of realization. With the sublimation of the collective will of the human race as the source of power, the universal wishing machine in their world would naturally have a distorted effect in another world. If it was only material needs such as money, it could be easily met within the limits of the world, and it would not interfere with the current world. However, power and the like would inevitably be involved with the humans in the current world, and would have a certain degree of influence on the world itself. However, this was also within the limits of the world. However, if the Holy Ring wanted to reverse the laws of the world in the current world, or even destroy the laws themselves, it would definitely trigger a violent rejection from the current world. As for what kind of reaction it would have, neither Sereno nor Yuezhing Ningning knew. The only thing they were sure of was that it would not be a good thing. Is this position hurting you, kitten? Chuketsu probably thought that Ningning was crying out because he was holding her in the wrong position, so he changed to a position that was even more embarrassing for Ningning. Is this okay? Ningning wanted to struggle, but the guardian spirit on the girl's shoulder was staring at her, so she did not have the energy to do so. Meow. In the end, she could only rub her whiskers and meow softly. 2/3. Chapter 307. Actually, you don't have to worry too much. Sensing that his master was in low spirits, the wizard continued to comfort her. The holy ring might not be found by the people of this world. Even if they did, they would need a certain amount of spirit to activate the holy ring. Normal people wouldn't be able to discover the uniqueness of the holy ring so easily. Is that so? Yuezhing Ningning replied in low spirits. That's right. Even if someone did find it and discovered the uniqueness of the holy ring, they would only wish for material things, so you don't have to worry too much. What the hell? Before Sereno could finish his sentence, the mountain where Jiangjin University was located was shrouded in a gray mist. If someone in this world had the ability of mana vision, they would be able to see the dark red blood-like magical energy flowing through the mist. Sereno. Alright, I admit that I jinxed it. But if that's the case, we won't be able to continue waiting for these two ladies to send us to the other side. After reaching an agreement with her magic device, Yuezhing Ningning took advantage of the gray mist around Jiangjin University to distract the guardian spirit of Chuketsu and leaped away. Even though she had tried her best to overestimate the abilities of the guardian spirit, she still underestimated the power of the guardian spirit that was once protected by Su Shenxing. Almost at the same time, the British short-hair guardian spirit reacted and threw a cat punch at Yuezhing Ningning. If an ordinary person were to see this scene, they would probably think that two cats were fighting. But only Yuezhing Ningning, who was in the middle of it, could feel the ferocity of the cat punch. Yuezhing Ningning had used all her remaining magical energy to construct a defense and entrusted Sereno to control the magic while she focused on dodging the attack. However, the attack still caused Yuezhing Ningning to suffer the damage of being hit by an overloaded 100-yard 16-wheeler truck. If it weren't for the fact that the magical girl had a high resistance to damage and wouldn't die even if she was hit by a building, this attack would have been enough to turn her into minced meat. Are you kidding me? Is the guardian spirit of this world really that terrifying? Yuezhing Ningning, who was desperately running into an alley, said with a bitter smile, Sereno, is this world really a low-magic world? Sereno? I'm sorry. The wizard with the pointed hat replied in a weak tone. His voice sounded very faint, as if a gust of wind could blow him away. That attack just now. I've also suffered a considerable amount of damage. I might need to rest for a while. Run to the holy ring first. Wait for me. Sereno. Ningning shouted a few times, but the other party didn't respond at all. The girl's heart sank. Even when Sereno fought against the three great calamities, this had never happened to him. Wah, from the moment you were chosen by my sword, you were destined to be unable to become an ordinary person. Okay, the target is Jiazi Garden. I was wrong, don't throw the sword out of the window. Cui Yingying looked at these two people with a dumbfounded expression, and then she noticed that the woman in the palace dress was floating in the air. Who are you people? Thinking that the other party had just saved her, and the somewhat funny conversation before made them not look like bad people, the girl tried her best to calm down and asked. That's a good question. I am a non-staff member of the super administrative office, probably. Can't you let me sing a name once in a while? Because it's too long, I'll be scolded for making up the word count. 3/3. Chapter 308. The number of monsters has increased. Chin-Tua sighed. The white light on the broken sword in his hand flickered. However, every time he waved it, there would be a sword light that was several feet long, destroying the skeletons, zombies, and ghosts that came into contact with it. The girl he had just rescued was obediently following behind him. Although Chin-Tua had once suspected her identity, it seemed that she had not done anything to harm him, so he still brought this burden along for the time being. At this time, why don't we head towards the original exit of this school? Maybe we can get out from there? The sword soul of the Emperor's sword asked its master curiously. According to common sense, that won't work. It's either an air wall or a plot kill. Chin-Tua replied without hesitation, of course, it's not possible to stay in the same place. Emperor, your power is limited, right? If we're surrounded, it's a dead end. This won't work and that won't work. Then what should we do? I don't think those skeletons will let you go if you admit defeat. In a sense, the Emperor's sword soul and those vengeful spirits were more or less the same kind of living creatures, or dead things. However, after failing to greet the other party in a friendly manner and being ignored, she urged Chin-Tua to mainly eliminate those white guys. Based on the general theory of various movies and television works, we should now collect information, highlight individual heroism and the protagonist's halo, and get to the bottom of the matter before we can leave. Chin-Tua recalled the movies and television dramas he had watched at his classmate's house, then continued, but that's general theory. Because Jiang Jin has an extraordinarily strong existence, I don't think he won't notice the situation here. Therefore, our safest choice now is to wait for him to discover the situation here and get rid of the mastermind of the whole thing. Then we can leave this place calmly. Oh, you're talking about that person. The Emperor crossed his arms and nodded. Indeed, that person's power was unstoppable. Even when I think of the things that happened at that time, I will sigh. Rather than sigh, it would be more accurate to say that he was trembling in fear. Cui Yingying looked curiously at the trembling son of Heaven Sword Soul and couldn't help but think to herself. At this moment, an orange-yellow light pierced through the gray fog. Immediately the train's whistle sounded. Under the surprised gazes of Chin-Tua and Cui Yingying, a rather retro steam locomotive stopped in front of them. Let us turn our attention from the others to the main character who has not appeared for several chapters. Not long after he left Jiangjin University with the Earth Lowly and returned to the back of the mountain, Su Xinxing realized that something was wrong. The Earth God, who was originally following behind him, was holding onto the big tree beside him with a pained expression. Originally, Su Xinxing thought that this guy was pretending to cause trouble again, but when he saw the other party's pale face, he realized that he was wrong. Although the Earth God Loli was not very strong, she was still an old god that had existed for thousands of years. The only thing that could cause an ancient god to be in such pain was probably something that the god symbolized, which was what Fusang Shinto called the divine body, all kinds of things worshipped in shrines. And the Earth God symbolized the land of Jiangjin itself. Even if the spiritual vein was leaked, it only caused the Earth God Loli to feel uncomfortable. Now that she was showing such a pained expression, it seemed that the current problem was quite serious. Hey, what's wrong with you? Su Xinxing couldn't help but ask, are you okay? If I have to use an analogy right now, the Earth God of Jiangjin said in a very weak voice. It's probably the feeling of having a sweet dream of eating durian pastry, but when I woke up I realized that I accidentally ate a sock into my stomach. This analogy is too complicated. What kind of feeling is that? Su Xinxing, who didn't have the money to eat durian pastry, expressed that he couldn't understand at all. What's going on? But since the other party was still in the mood to joke, it meant that at least she wouldn't die in a short time. So Su Xinxing was a little relieved. Do you still remember what kind of case you were investigating when you first met me? After resting for a while, the Earth God Loli's body recovered a little, so she asked Su Xinxing solemnly, what kind of case? Su Xinxing thought hard for a moment, then suddenly opened his eyes and replied sternly, I don't remember. Suddenly, the girl with the mushroom hair showed an expression that she wanted to complain, but she felt that this would lead the topic to Siberia, so she suppressed her expression. At that time, there was an evil demon who went around kidnapping girls with the 4 pillars of Yin constitution. intending to unseal a monster at the entrance of the underworld. In order to prevent things from becoming more complicated, the Earth God Loli personally explained, it was also because of that incident that Jiang Jin's spirit veins were damaged. Originally, this was a small matter. After all, similar situations had happened several times in the past, but I didn't expect the spiritual energy between heaven and earth to decline to such an extent, so much so that the leakage of the spirit veins expanded faster than I expected. Is this related to what's happening now? Su Xinxing asked curiously. In short, in addition to that incident causing problems with Jiang Jin's spirit veins, it also caused this area to have a faint connection with the underworld. I thought that with you overseeing this place, no one would be foolish enough to use this to cause trouble. But now that I think about it, maybe I was too optimistic. The Earth God Loli turned her head and looked in the direction of Jiangjin University. Now that place's modern world and the underworld have reversed because of an unknown force. The modern world and the underworld have reversed? Su Xinxing was a little surprised. What's going on with this situation that reminds me of Xiao Hei's house? I don't know, but it doesn't matter now. After all, that school also has the protection you left behind, so the power of the underworld won't affect the school too much in the short term, the girl said with a serious expression. Listen, there are two things you need to do now. First, don't let the undead creatures that appeared because of the reversal of the modern world escape from Jiangjin University's campus. Second, before the people of the underworld realize that something is wrong, get Jiangjin University out of the underworld again. No problem, I'm very good at physical attacks. Su Xinxing said confidently and rolled up his sleeves to do a bodybuilding pose. No matter which of these two things, it has nothing to do with physical attacks. Chapter 309. Half an hour ago in the classroom where the maid cafe was located. Miss Emoli, if you continue eating, there won't be enough ice cream left. Asahi Sakurakanji didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at Emoli, who was looking at him with hopeful eyes not far away. The little girl didn't say anything and continued to look at Asahi Sakurakanji with her big watery eyes. It made Asahi Sakurakanji feel helpless when a cute pet begged for food. Then here's the last one. In the end, Miko-sama gave in. While pouring the ice cream for Emoli, she repeated the same words that she had said 3 times today. Emoli nodded with satisfaction. Although her expression didn't change much, it gave people the feeling that if she had a tail, it would be wagging desperately right now. However, the moment the little girl was about to take the sundae, the sky outside the window was shrouded in dark red magic, and a gray fog rose around the school. Of course, if that was all, it wouldn't stop the little girl from eating the ice cream. The problem was that even Asahi Sakurakanji, who was handing her the ice cream, had disappeared in an instant. The well-decorated maid cafe had turned into a dilapidated classroom that had been abandoned for a long time. Naturally, the ice cream had also disappeared because of this. Because of this sudden change, the little girl's body stiffened. She stayed in the position of taking the sundae for about 3 seconds. Then she puffed up her cheeks and showed an extremely dissatisfied expression. What happened? Like Emoli, Chihaya Fukuyama, who was slacking off, and Jiang Yu, who was at a loss of what to do, didn't disappear. However, compared to the panicked Chihaya Fukuyama, Jiang Yu seemed to be much calmer in the face of this unbelievable situation. Perhaps it was because Jiang Yu belonged to this kind of unbelievable situation. It's a riot of magic. Emoli summarized the current situation concisely. The result of a third-rate sorcerer obtaining a divine artifact. Is that so? Perhaps the calmness of Emoli and Jiang Yu had affected Chihaya Fukuyama, causing the girl to calm down a little. Seeing how knowledgeable Emoli was, as if he didn't care about this at all, she asked carefully, could it be that this situation isn't serious at all? Super serious. Then be serious. Just as Chihaya Fukuyama was asking Emoli what he should do now, a streak of light flashed by. The next moment, the streak of light disappeared without a trace, and was replaced by Qin Xingyan with his flying sword. Senior, are you there? The young cultivator hurriedly asked. That guy just left with Master Craftsman. Damn it, why at this time? Chihaya Fukuyama seemed to resent this. However, even the girl herself did not notice that she seemed to have unknowingly developed a sense of trust in Su Xinxing. As long as that guy was there, no matter what happened, she did not need to care. Although this was more or less the truth. In other words, before Senior discovers the abnormality here, It's up to us to get through this situation. Qin Xingyan's expression became a little unsightly. Although Mo Li's fighting ability seemed to be very high, compared to Su Xinxing's all-around strength, except for the fact that he was an idiot in magic, this little guy's fighting style was much more immature. Not to mention, once this girl started fighting, she would not care about the situation of her allies at all. Moreover, the way the little girl was muttering to herself in a fit of pique, "I'm angry, I'm going to destroy the world," made Chihaya Fukuyama subtly feel uneasy. Is the situation very bad now? Chihaya Fukuyama asked again. To be honest, whether it was Mo Li or Jiang Yu, they were the type of people who did not talk much and were not suited for communication, so Chihaya Fukuyama could do nothing but worry on his own. In comparison, even Qin Xingyan, who was more introverted than the average person, was much better. I'm not sure, this incident happened too suddenly, and it seems that only people who meet the condition of possessing special powers haven't disappeared. Everyone else has disappeared. Qin Xingyan frowned slightly, looking a little worried about the current situation. What's worse is that the entire campus of Jiangjin University is now filled with the aura of death. Wait, if people with special powers don't disappear, why did Asahi disappear too? Chihaya Fukuyama asked hurriedly. Qin Xingyan looked a little surprised. After thinking for a while, she said uncertainly, "I don't know much about Shinto, but in Shinto the witches seem to be existences who serve the gods. Although some witches obtain extraordinary powers through rituals such as offering themselves to the gods, most of the witches who possess special powers are actually just borrowing the power of the gods they serve. In other words, they don't have any special powers themselves. Perhaps Sakura Kanji is the same?" Chihaya Fukuyama thought for a while, and then sadly realized that as a god, he did not know as much about Fusang Shinto as Qin Xingyan, a cultivator of the Celestial Empire, so he could only assume that was the case for the time being. "So what should we do now? Stay here?" Chihaya Fukuyama asked, but then she thought of what Qin Xingyan said just now. Obviously, this sentence did not mean that the current situation could be resolved just by sitting here and chatting. "A lot of the dead have appeared in the university. I guess that's the source of the aura of death." Qin Xingyan's face was solemn. Although many of the dead are not strong individually, they can infinitely revive in this environment, so it's very difficult to deal with them. "Can't we temporarily change our strategy, retreat?" "Retreat?" "Unfortunately, the gate of the university seems to be blocked by an invisible force. At least I can't get out of here alone. So what should we do now?" Chihaya Fukuyama scratched his head frantically. There should be some people with supernatural powers in this university, such as the lady on the moon and her attendants a few days ago. Instead of fighting alone with them, why don't we just gather together and improve our combat power and survival ability? Qin Xingyan calmly made her own suggestion. "Well said, but now that there are monsters outside, how are we going to meet up with those people?" Chihaya Fukuyama asked. Qin Xingyan did not answer directly but looked at Jiang Yu. "Miss Jiang Yu, can we?" The little girl with long straight black hair in a maid uniform nodded, then took out a bell from nowhere, raised it high and rang the bell. As the crisp sound of the bell echoed in the campus, the roar of the engine and the high-pitched whistle of the steam engine came from afar, and together with it, a black steam locomotive appeared in mid-air. Chapter 310. Although he had some doubts about the sudden appearance of the locomotive, Qin Tua didn't have time to hesitate at this point. After some consideration, he held the Emperor's sword and cautiously walked up with Cui Yingying. As soon as they got on the train, Cui Yingying saw Mo Li huddled in the corner of the train. He was still thinking about the missing ice cream and was full of resentment. This made the little girl very pleasantly surprised. Although she did not know why, when she saw Mo Li, she felt an inexplicable sense of security even though she was still in danger. "So it's you guys." Although Qin Tua had never seen River Moon before, he still knew the members of Sakura apartment. After seeing Qin Xingyan and the others, he naturally let down some of his tension and relaxed a little. But then he realized that the key person who could solve the current situation was not here, so he frowned and asked, "Where's that Uncle Su? If it's Senior Su, for some reason he's not in this strange space." Qin Xingyan shook his head with a serious expression. "Before he comes, we have to find a way to get out of this current predicament." Before finding Qin Tua and the others, Qin Xingyan and the others first went to find Chang Shaoxian and the other two moon goddesses. But the cosplay cafe where their class was located did not have them in the classroom, only some traces of a fierce fight. But fortunately, the traces of the fight did not show the extent of their injuries, and from the various traces, the three of them should have successfully broken through the monster's encirclement and escaped from the classroom. Get out of this predicament? I think the best way to deal with it is to find a way to avoid those monsters and not cause trouble casually. The best way to deal with it is to wait for that uncle to come. Chin Tua, who had returned to his usual lazy attitude, immediately expressed his opinion. That's the best way to protect ourselves, but it has no effect on alleviating the current situation. Qin Xingyan did not hesitate to raise an objection. Any subjective consciousness that ignores objective conditions cannot be considered correct, even if that subjective consciousness thinks from a good point of view. Qin Tua didn't directly refute Qin Xingyan's words. Instead, he simply pieced together a few sentences from the ideological and political books that he was confused about. Then he continued, "We don't know what's going on. Is this the end of the world like in online novels? Did some bad guy set up a dangerous enchantment around the school? Or did the entire school fall into another world? Under such circumstances, any random action we take will likely make the situation worse. How do you know if you don't try? What if that try messes up the whole thing? We'll talk about it when the time comes." People who don't think about the consequences of their actions and only act aimlessly are usually called boorish. Things won't turn around if you don't do anything. Compared to a brute, a coward who blindly runs away is more shameful. The more they talked, the more excited they became. They even stood up. But it's more likely that a coward will survive. Ouch. Before Chin Tua could finish his words, he was interrupted by his own scream. He was kicked by Mo Li's small leather boot and was now rolling on the ground in pain. Quarrel. Mo Li's face was gloomy as he used his arm to make a big cross in front of his chest. Don't quarrel. Qin Xingyan looked at Chin Tua's miserable state. He swallowed his saliva guiltily and silently sat back in his seat. After all, the person who used to play with Mo Li was Su Shenxing. As a result, Mo Li didn't use much strength when he kicked Chin Tua. Although the kick didn't break Chin Tua's shin, it was enough to make Chin Tua suffer. Aside from the Son of Heaven's sword spirit, who had "it's rare to see its master suffer" expression, the others were silent for a while. At this time, Jiang Yu's small head poked in from outside. "There's a cat in the courtyard below." A cat? Chihaya Fukuyama was a little surprised. After all, ever since Jiangjin University became like this, let alone a cat, they hadn't even seen a mosquito. Naturally, it was surprising. That cat is very strange. Jiang Yu thought for a while, but because she hadn't been a human for long, she didn't have a lot of vocabulary. She couldn't think of a good way to describe it, so she could only say, "Take a look yourselves." Hearing this, Chihaya Fukuyama poked his head out of the car window and looked down. Sure enough, he saw a strange Xiaohei cat, but because of the height he couldn't see it clearly. A cat that appears in a place like this, and it's obviously not a normal creature. I think it's necessary to observe it closely. Qin Xingyan probably felt that it was troublesome to look for a small target from outside the car window, so he didn't use his eyes to look for traces of the cat like Chihaya Fukuyama did. Instead, he used the palm reading technique that he used on the moon. After confirming that the cat was wearing a wizard's hat, the female cultivator said calmly, Wait a minute." Chin Tua, who had finally caught his breath, immediately continued to object. According to the general plot development of a movie, this kind of harmless-looking creature is usually a fierce big boss. Before confirming the safety of the other party, casually approaching is equivalent to suicide. Big boss? Qin Xingyan looked at Emoli and felt that this little girl who could talk and laugh with Su Shenxing in a sense should have the ability to kill all the big bosses on Earth. Or rather, if the little cat was really a big boss, it would be a good thing for them who were currently in the dark. Chapter 311. According to a cat's vigilant nature, when a huge unknown object approached them, they would most likely run away without a care for anything else. Then they would find a small and cramped place to hide, ensuring that no one would be able to find them. However, the Xiaohei cat with the sorcerer's hat was surprisingly obedient. Even when the river moon, which was considered a huge existence to her, slowly approached her, she did not run away in fear. Instead, she sat on the ground calmly as if waiting for the river moon to come closer. This abnormal behavior naturally made Qin Xingyan and Qin Tua on the river moon concerned. The only thing worth rejoicing over was that the other party did not show any obvious hostility. Careful. Qin Xingyan's expression turned serious. When the river moon approached a certain distance, the Xiaohei cat suddenly moved. Like a black lightning bolt, it leaped towards the river moon. Although it was in midair, it was as if it was walking on flat ground, completely unaffected by gravity. Although the river moon was also a monster, to be precise, it was a death god. But because it was physically weak and was currently in a weakened state, it did not have the ability to defend or stop the black cat. Seeing that the black cat was about to rush into the river moon, Qin Xingyan held onto the door frame with one hand, allowing her hair to dance in the wind. Her eyes were fixed on the black cat, and her right hand suddenly shook outwards as she shouted, "Hit!" A red light shot out from the girl's hand, heading straight for the Xiaohei cat. Seeing that the Xiaohei cat with the sorcerer's hat was about to collide with the red light, at this moment, the cat's tail spun like a helicopter's propeller, forcibly increasing its altitude in midair. "Damn, this works too." Ooh. Qin Xingyan revealed a shocked expression, but before she could react, the Xiaohei cat used her face as a stepping board, stomping her words back into her throat, and used a second jump. Seeing this, the river moon immediately lowered the head of the train, making a slow descent, wanting to force the cat to rush out of the window. "Miss Xingyan." Qianzhao Shinshan rushed forward to support Qin Xingyan, who was about to fall. As a result, the little black cat seized the opportunity and wrapped its tail around Qin Xingyan's head. Not only did it cover the eyes of the new god known as the God of War, but it also used this as a leverage point to avoid the fate of being thrown out of the carriage by Jiangyu. Chihaya Fukuyama, who was used as a leverage point, naturally followed in Qin Xingyan's footsteps, and the two fell into a heap in the narrow carriage. At this moment, the little black cat had already jumped onto the wall, as if it was going to repeat the same trick, using the wall as a springboard to perform 3 jumps. But just as it was about to subconsciously choose Jasmine, who was at the very front, as its target, it felt an indescribable chill. Thus, it decisively changed its target to Chintua, who was behind Jasmine. The moment Chintua noticed the cat's deep, dark eyes staring at him, he understood what the cat was thinking. Naturally, he would not sit still and wait for his death. "Son of Heaven." Understood. In the blink of an eye, the sword spirit girl floating behind the boy merged with the ancient sword in the boy's hand. Swinging the sword in such a narrow space was not an appropriate choice. Moreover, from the conversation just now, Chintua had a rough idea of the origin of the train. If the Son of Heaven's sword used too much force and destroyed the entire carriage, forget about the people from the Jiangji Museum. Even the guy with the surname Su was not someone he could afford to offend. But then again, under such circumstances, if the entire carriage was not destroyed and only a little damage was done, it would still be acceptable. Rightful hammer of self-defense. Thus he held the ancient sword upside down, and used the hilt of the Son of Heaven's sword as a blunt weapon to hammer Xiaohei cat. Although it looked like a very playful move, Chintua had discovered during his experiments that if the sword spirit of the Son of Heaven's sword entered the sword, the power of the Son of Heaven's sword would increase exponentially. Even though it looked like a joke, its power was still shocking. With a loud clang, the hilt of the sword did not hit Xiaohei cat, but the entire carriage of River Moon tilted because of this heavy blow. Qin Xingyan and Chihaya Fukuyama, who had just stood up, fell into a ball again. Mo blinked twice, then stomped on the tilted floorboard, and River Moon was stomped back to its original balance with a teeth-numbing crunch. Just as River Moon was being tossed back and forth, Tui Yingying, who was hiding at the back, almost fell. Originally, as the only normal person on the River Moon, although Jasmine was also there, she was able to calm down in the face of something as unscientific as the River Moon's train, but this was her limit. In fact, even she was a little puzzled as to how she could remain calm to this extent, as if she had encountered a situation worse than this before. But when she saw the main culprit of the tragedy in the carriage, the little black cat, pouncing towards her, the girl reacted like most ordinary people, reflexively covering her head with both hands, trying to avoid the cat's attack. But what the girl didn't expect was that the cat didn't do anything excessive to her. Just when it was about to land on her, it suddenly raised its head and took away the silver ring that Tui Yingying had been holding in her hand. Then the black cat did not stay any longer and jumped out of the carriage window. Chintua quickly ran to the window, but there was no way to find the Xiaohei cat. Although in the legends of the mortal world the flower of the other shore was actually the flower of the creeping pearls. By the way, this thing also had a very unartistic name which was called stone garlic. In reality this was not the case. The red spider lily was a plant unique to the underworld that only grew at the edge of the river of forgetfulness and the 9 springs. Although it looked similar to the creeping pearl lily, it was different from the plants in the human world. To the living, the red spider lily was an absolute poison. If the eyes saw it, the eyes would go blind. If the nose smelled it, the nose would rot. If the body came into contact with it, the body would begin to melt. Although it was undoubtedly a taboo to the living, to the underworld, it was an indispensable existence. Many people would be reluctant to leave the human world after death. This kind of wandering soul was different from the normal dead. They would not voluntarily pass through the river of forgetfulness, wash away all karma and return to the cycle of reincarnation. In every red spider lily there was a soul like this. For those souls with heavier karma and wandering souls who were reluctant to leave the human world, the red spider lily was like a drug. It made them want to get close to it, and in the end they would latch onto it. As a flower of the underworld that was irrigated by the river of forgetfulness, it had a similar effect as the river of forgetfulness. The soul that latched onto it would gradually lose all karma, and in the end, let go of all obsession with the human world and leave, passing through the river of forgetfulness and returning to the origin of life. It was also because it had absorbed a large amount of karma that the red spider lily was an untouchable taboo to the living. Of course, these restrictions had no effect on Su Shenxing. Because of some reason the karma on this guy was much more than all the other red spider lilies combined. It was also because of this that the red spider lilies seemed to have a consciousness. When Su Shenxing walked through the flower field, they would slightly tilt to the side, opening up a path for him. This made Su Shenxing, who had originally planned to pluck a red spider lily to study, hesitate. Oh, I see it. After walking for an unknown amount of time, Su Shenxing finally saw an illusory campus in the middle of the red spider lily field. The people who had participated in Jiangjin University's anniversary celebration seemed to have lost their souls. There was no light in their eyes and they wandered around the campus like zombies. Next, it should be fine as long as I throw this thing back to the human world. Although it was important to prevent the souls that had been sent back to the human world from escaping Jiangjin University, Su Shenxing felt that there was no need for him to worry about that when he thought about Mo Li, who was of the same mind as him, was still there. Stop, mortal. At this moment, a voice that sounded like a subwoofer's special effects rang out. Who is it? Su Shenxing scratched his face and looked around, but he did not find the person who had spoken. Living people are not allowed to enter the underworld. This is a heavenly commandment that was set thousands of years ago. If you leave quickly now, I can still not pursue your responsibility. The other party did not answer Su Shenxing's question. Instead, he continued to speak in a subwoofer tone. Then what about the people inside? Su Shenxing pointed at the illusory Jiangjin University not far away and asked. Since these mortals have already fallen into the underworld, it is naturally their fate. It cannot be forced. The dead cannot be revived. This is the law of the heavens. Leave quickly and stop disturbing the heavenly secrets. The other party spoke in a bureaucratic tone. I have something to say, but I don't know if I should. When Su Shenxing heard him say this, he could not help but chuckle. What is it? Mother ***. After pointing his middle finger at the sky, Su Shenxing continued to walk toward the illusory campus without looking back. Chapter 313. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and run, partner. Just as the girl was still in shock, the voice of the wizard hat Sereno was heard. Sereno, are you awake? Lu Zheng and Ningning seemed to have found their backbone and couldn't help but shout out happily. Ah, what a terrible experience. I didn't expect there to be someone in this world who specializes in attacking souls. I was careless and suffered a great loss. The voice of the wizard hat sounded weak, but even so it was still as loud as ever. But now is not the time to be happy. Hurry up and run. Are you kidding me? I only slept for a little while and the 3 great calamities are about to awaken. Sereno, I'm the only magical girl in this world. If I run away, won't this world be in danger? Lu Zheng and Ningning didn't hesitate to reject the wizard hat's suggestion. Although I don't know which of the 3 great calamities came out this time, even if it's the 3 great calamities, they shouldn't be too powerful when they've just recovered. If we leave them alone now and wait until they fully recover, we won't be able to escape no matter where we run. That would be the worst situation, wouldn't it? Hearing Xiao Hei's words, the wizard hat was silent for a moment before it continued. You'll die, you know? Because you've already gathered all the holy rings this time. It's not one of the three great calamities that has appeared. Instead, it's the Trinity, the source of all calamities, the starting point of the destruction of all things. It's an existence as powerful as the thought of the destroyer of worlds. Yuezhing Ningning did not answer. Instead, she expressed her attitude by not taking a step back. That's why my partner is always such a reckless person like you, the wizard hat complained, but the girl could hear a trace of admiration in its voice. Because the first magical girl, wasn't she the one who stood up in this situation? Perhaps it was because Sereno had woken up. Yuezhing Ningning's mood became a lot more relaxed. She wagged her tail and said softly, since you chose me to be the magical girl, isn't it because she's very similar to me? My original master. Although we are the only magical devices in our world that still retain memories of her, no matter how much time has passed, we will never forget her. The hat said in a nostalgic voice, to be honest, she's more stubborn and kind than you are. This was the first time Sereno told Yuezhing Ningning about the first magical girl who saved mankind and the entire world. Ningning could not help but be surprised. However, she did not interrupt Sereno's recollection. Instead, she listened to the wizard hat on her head as she cautiously looked at the sacred ring that was emitting black smoke. I've told you before that she single-handedly resisted the will of the destroyer of worlds in order to save mankind, causing her existence to evaporate. That's why no one remembers her. Ningning, who had faced off against the three great calamities before, knew very well that this was an ability unique to the three great calamities. It was similar to the halo of fear. If there were any ordinary people around, they would immediately be corroded by countless evil thoughts and become insane. What was worse was that from the strength of the halo of fear, the three great calamities were much stronger than the individual calamities. Perhaps he would really die here. This thought flashed through the girl's mind in an instant. Chapter 3:14. The black smoke was slowly taking shape, but it was not a physical form. It was just a disgusting collection of filth. Countless blood-red eyes appeared in the formless body of fog, staring at Yuezhing Ningning, who had turned into Xiao Hei the cat. Even though it had not made a move, Yuezhing Ningning could not move at all due to the suppression of magic power that far exceeded her own. Even though she was in a weakened state due to her resurrection, the power of the final disaster was still far beyond Yuezhing Ningning's estimation, and this miscalculation caused the girl to lose her only chance. In just a moment, the situation had deteriorated to the worst possible state. There was no turning back. The next moment, with a ping sound, the black smoke was shattered into pieces by a pair of small hands that were as white as jade. Just like that, it disappeared into the air as if it was no different from ordinary smoke. Wah! The pressure on Lu Zheng and Ningning had not yet recovered from their shock when she was lifted into the air by the back of their necks. No matter how hard she struggled, it was useless. Qin Xingyan carefully lifted Xiao Hei the cat and asked Mo Li, who was patting the holy ring, "We finally caught this guy? Mo Li, what did this guy summon with the ring just now?" Mo Li shook his head, indicating that he did not know. But after tilting her head and thinking for a moment, she said seriously, "It's quite weak." "Well, that's good." Because he had not fought with the black smoke, Qin Xingyan could not determine how strong the quite weak black smoke that Mo Li mentioned was. But after all, he had been with Su Xinxing for some time, and he knew that even the great monsters of the prehistoric era belonged to the category of quite weak in Su Xinxing's mind. Well, so far, other than Mo Li, Su Xinxing did not seem to have any other strong or weak monsters other than quite weak. In short, because he had been with these two real monsters for some time, Qin Xingyan was too lazy to find out how strong the quite weak monsters were. The biggest problem now is that thing in the sky. She raised her head and looked at the sky. The gloomy sky that was originally covered by the gray fog was now much brighter. But the brightness came from the huge inverted lake in the sky that was made of a bright red substance that looked like blood. That thing was not real blood, nor was it energy like magic power. Instead, it was an existence that was closer to the materialization of certain concepts. It carried an extremely dense aura of death. At least Qin Xingyan knew that if her 2 flying swords fell into it, there was an 80% chance that they would be destroyed. In all the knowledge that Qin Xingyan had learned in his life, the only thing that was similar to that was the legendary blood seek in the depths of the underworld. Even in the heyday of cultivation, when spiritual qi was abundant in the ancient times, few powerful cultivators dared to enter the depths of the underworld. Most of the knowledge about the underworld came from ancient books and records. Probably only the strong cultivators in the mythological era who were at the same level as the stone monkey could escape from the underworld unscathed after entering it. In this era, not to mention entering the depths of the underworld, even opening the door to the underworld and entering the underworld was a feat that was almost mythical and legendary. A certain genius in the Tao of Ghosts did not believe in heresy and tried once. After he opened the entrance to the underworld, he showed off his prowess there. In the end, before he could show off enough, he was kicked into the underworld by the previous temple master of the Bailu temple. Then he closed the door to the underworld with a flip of his hand, causing this genius in the Tao of Ghosts to become a monster that lived between life and death at the entrance to the underworld. Although Qin Xingyan did not know what would happen if the blood sea flowed into the human world, this did not prevent him from realizing that it was not a good thing. Judging from the current rate of expansion of the blood sea, this thing would soon break through the limits of Jiangjin University and flow into the outside world. And the effect it caused was not good. Now the aura of death in the entire Jiangjin University campus was several times thicker than before, and the ghouls had also become more active. If all of this was really caused by that ring, then after finding the ring the situation should have been resolved. But reality didn't go so smoothly. Because Jasmine had used too much force when she slapped the ring that looked like it had a metallic texture broke like it was made of styrofoam. With a crack the ring broke. Mo Li, Qin Xingyan, Yuezhing Ningning. Putting aside the fact that Yuezhing Ningning's entire cat had turned gray, Qin Xingyan was also a little distressed. The situation is not getting better, Mo Li. Do you have any other ideas? If the landlord is here then yes, but if he's not, then there's nothing I can do. Mo Li calmly threw the shard of the holy ring into the flower bed behind him, and even stepped on it twice. Then, as if to divert everyone's attention, he gently poked his own forehead. Qin Xingyan vaguely saw what seemed to be a rune flash by, but she did not delve into it. Whether it was Su Shenxing or Mo Li, these two fellows had a lot of secrets. At this moment, a large bare tree grew at an astonishing speed visible to the naked eye from the courtyard of the campus. It spread out until it reached the sky and pierced into the sea of blood, forcibly suppressing the spreading speed of the sea of blood. Chang Xiaoxian's laurel. Qin Xingyan, who had seen this thing with Su Shenxing in the Moon Palace, eyes lit up. Not long after, the River Moon, carrying Chang Xiaoxian and the others, met up with Qin Xingyan and Mo Li. The laurel and the blood sea are of the same level. But to be honest, the two of them are not very compatible. After boarding the River Moon and avoiding the undead creatures that were swarming from all over the school, the two parties began to exchange information. The first to speak was naturally Chang Xiaoxian. She looked a little disheveled, probably because she was caught off guard by the unexpected situation. However, she did not suffer any injuries and she seemed to be in good spirits. In contrast, the other two moon goddesses were a little worse. Hecate's face was pale. Although she was not injured, her black dress was a little damaged. Artemis, on the other hand, had suffered some minor injuries and was being treated with the help of Chihaya Fukuyama. The laurel can't suppress this thing for too long, and now the creatures of the underworld have begun to mutate and become much stronger. If this continues, I'm afraid our situation will be very bad. Her words silenced everyone. Only Mo Li's eyes suddenly lit up and then he said, "Don't panic, the landlord's matter seems to be resolved and he'll be here soon." Chapter 315. I'm not joking with you. Stop it, mortal. In the underworld, the subwoofer-like voice was still chattering in Su Shenxing's ear. If you continue to be stubborn, I will have no choice but to punish you. Su Shenxing dug his ears. He was too lazy to talk nonsense. He directly summoned the holy sword and stabbed it into the ground, silencing the voice. Although there were no visible changes here, in fact, Su Shenxing's sword had penetrated the boundary layer of the underworld, stirring up a mess in the depths of hell. This was also Su Shenxing's last warning to the voice. letting it understand that if it continued to talk like this, even the good-tempered Su Shenxing would be angry. Well, I admit that you are a little stronger than I thought. What Su Shenxing didn't expect was that after a long silence, that guy actually opened his mouth and continued to nag. But I'm condensed from the remnant souls accumulated over tens of thousands of years in the underworld. I represent the consciousness of the entire underworld. I'm not a god or a demon from hell. I don't have a physical body. As long as the underworld exists, I won't die. However, its confident words did not shake Su Shenxing at all. As if he did not hear its declaration, the latter continued to walk toward the illusory campus of Jiangjin University. Stop it right now. Isn't it common sense to listen to others when they are talking? Don't you have any manners at all? The voice sounded a little anxious. Anyway, at this time, the villain is either bluffing or starts to talk about his plan from beginning to end. In a situation where the ending is already determined, there is nothing to listen to. Su Shenxing raised his eyebrows. Remnant souls of tens of thousands of years? If you were a concept creature, it would be somewhat interesting. But a mere consciousness accumulated over the years dares to act like this. With that, Su Shenxing waved his hand, and the holy sword behind him flew into his hand in response to his call. Then Su Shenxing casually swung his sword, and the entire underworld let out a cracking sound as if it could not bear the burden. Cracks that were invisible to the naked eye instantly densely covered the layer that led to the reincarnation in hell. Not only that, even the voice that claimed to be the consciousness of the underworld was shocked by his actions. What did you do? Since it's a consciousness condensed from a remnant soul, it can't be counted as a consciousness of the underworld, right? The consciousness of the world is not as weak as you. Su Shenxing curled his lips. Although it is not that strong. The sword strike just now did not only shatter the barrier of this space, but also destroyed the remnant souls that had been gathered on this level for hundreds of thousands of years since the 6 paths of reincarnation was established. It made the consciousness lose the capital to be resurrected in an instant, and it was truly at the end of its rope. Aren't you afraid of being punished by that lord for doing such a thing? The amalgamation of remnant souls roared in horror like a beast that had been forced into a desperate situation. Oh, don't tell me this is the classic trick of beating up the young and the old coming out? Su Shenxing casually waved his hand, and the holy sword disappeared without a trace. He said casually, Okay. Whether you call for a teacher or a parent, I will accompany you. However, there did not seem to be any overly powerful existences in the underworld. It would be better to say that as a subspace attached to the world, the underworld itself was just a vassal of the world. Whether it was Mo Li who had been unsealed to a certain extent, or Su Shenxing who was slightly more serious, it was not enough to deal with. But if he thought about it carefully, this change was a bit strange. Although there should be a trigger for this to happen in Jiangjin University, it was too much of a coincidence. Moreover, in order to achieve the purpose of the exchange between the outside and the inside, there was actually something like an illusion of Jiangjin University. When all these coincidences were added together, it seemed extremely suspicious. Thinking about it carefully, the layout on the moon that took a long time seemed to be faintly targeted at Su Shenxing and his party. Although the layout was launched early because of UK-004, the original monsters that were originally raised in captivity had also become extremely powerful because of UK-004. The two complemented each other, and the original situation was similar to the original situation. Thinking of this, Su Shenxing suddenly felt a little surprised. Judging from this development, it seemed that someone was going to cause trouble. Therefore, he intended to try to catch the amalgamation of remnant souls and ask some information about that person from it. But before he could do anything, strange dark red fountains began to spray out from various parts of the spider lily's field. The dark red liquid sprayed out from the fountains did not fall to the ground because of gravity, but gradually began to float into the air. Lord, wait. Ah. At first, the subwoofer was very happy when he saw the bright red Baotu spring, but not long after, the tone of surprise disappeared and was replaced by a voice of horror and a scream that finally resounded through the underworld. Immediately, Su Shenxing realized that the guy had been killed by the upside-down sea of blood above his head. Killing a ghost to silence him. This trick is really skillful. Su Shenxing clicked his tongue unhappily. Chapter 316. Junia, are you tired? She could vaguely hear the voice of her junior who was looking forward to her. This made Ruishi, who had regained her senses, feel as if she had accidentally dozed off. No, I just accidentally spaced out for a while. Mizuki Takemiya shook her head. Junia, are you tired? She could vaguely hear the voice of her junior who was looking forward to her. This made Ruishi, who had regained her senses, feel as if she had accidentally dozed off. No, I just accidentally spaced out for a while. Mizuki Takemiya shook her head. Ah, I understand. The climate here is very warm and comfortable, it makes people accidentally spaced out. Her junior and temporary assistant also giggled and said, actually, I also accidentally spaced out for a while. The surrounding scene was the same as before, there was no unusual bustle, which reminded the girl of the school festival she experienced. But in essence, this school anniversary event should have the same meaning as the school festival, right? Because Mizuki Takemiya didn't have a thorough grasp of Chinese, she could only let her imagination run wild. Wu Yi, what's next for my schedule? She picked up the cheap brewed coffee in front of her and took a sip. The bitter taste immediately came from her taste buds, which made her feel refreshed. Then she asked the junior next to her. Because Wu Yejin's ambition was to work for Rueishi's Faimiya group after graduation, plus she had nothing to do during the holidays, she simply ran to Mizuki Takemiya's side as an intern assistant. Nothing particularly important, if you must say. The mayor of Jiangjin City wants to invite you to dinner. Wu Yejin took out a pad from her jacket pocket, checked it for a moment and said to Rueishi. In that case, let's continue to walk around here for a while. Mizuki Takemiya nodded with satisfaction. Therefore the five-leaf pansy raised her hand and shouted, Bill. Not long after, a beautiful girl in a maid uniform floated in from the front desk. Fei Gong Rueishi wasn't someone who had never seen a beautiful girl before. Disregarding everything else, just her old acquaintance Fujiyama Chien was already one of the top beauties. Not to mention Rueishi herself was a beautiful girl full of Yamato Nadiko's temperament. But it was the first time Mizuki Takemiya saw a woman who was as beautiful as this person in front of her. Should it be said that she had a kind of fairy aura or a wonderful feeling? In short, she was the kind of stunning beauty that was unforgettable but not blasphemous. Even Wu Yejin couldn't help but secretly look at her. But what made Mizuki Takemiya strange was that the girl in front of him looked tired, as if she had just experienced something troublesome. Could it be because the cosplay cafe's business was too good? Fei Gong Rueishi didn't think too much about it. He just made a random guess. After Five-Leaf Pansy paid the bill, she left the classroom with her junior. Although in the eyes of ordinary people Mizuki Takemiya was a perfect superwoman, even after her father Faimiya Minoru Kuro had an accident, the girl still firmly convinced the directors of the Faimiya consortium, easily grasping the power of the entire consortium in her hands. With the identity of a high school girl, she directly occupied a place in the upper class of Fuso. But no one knew Mizuki Takemiya was actually very confused. She felt like she had forgotten something very important. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't remember what she had forgotten. At first she thought it was just an illusion, but as time passed she gradually realized that something was wrong. Her memory of her father seemed to be a little vague and some of her memories even had contradictions. When she was solving the internal affairs of the consortium, the Fuso government, which could have bitten off a piece of meat from the Faimiya consortium, didn't intervene too much from the beginning to the end. Even if they did take action, it was basically to show goodwill to the girl. Although no one explained it to her, from the conversation between the girl and the government employees, she vaguely learned that all of this was because of an organization called Enyang Shirtao. However, even if the girl spent a lot of time, money and energy to barely establish a relationship with Enyang Shirtao, the other party had always been tight-lipped about why they secretly helped her. This made the girl very annoyed. This feeling of irritation lingered, and the feeling of forgetting something important made the girl feel as if there was an unfilled hole in her heart. About a month ago she accidentally saw a trivial piece of news in Huaxia. In a place called Jiangjin, a university was about to hold a school anniversary event. The organizer, which was Jiangjin University, had once asked a small local branch of the Faimiya consortium for sponsorship, but the local branch refused. For some reason, when the girl saw this news, she instinctively had a reaction to the place called Jiangjin. So, Mizuki Takemiya, who was very active, immediately informed the branch there to agree to the sponsorship. and personally went to Jiangjin to participate in the school anniversary event. But after arriving here, the palpitating feeling didn't appear again. It even made the girl think that it might just be an illusion. Luoao, I heard that you went to Song Shan's house to meet her parents some time ago? *CK off Jiang Fan, if you continue to cause trouble, I'll beat you up. Hey Wujiao, look at Luoao, maybe this guy will leave the team soon, why don't we send him to Aruba? Sorry, my girlfriend is looking for me, I'll leave first. You two are just pretending to be bastards. Although the campus of Jiangjin University was not crowded with people, there were lively conversations everywhere, such as the one on the roof. But no matter how lively the scene was, it couldn't make Mizuki Takemiya feel warm. She traveled thousands of miles to a foreign country, but she couldn't find what she was looking for. This made the girl feel like she was an outsider, as if she was walking outside of this lively scene. Come to think of it, after becoming the leader of the Imperial Concubine Financial Group, her words and actions could affect the entire financial group. From that moment on, she had no fate with the word ordinary. Right? Thinking of this, Mizuki Takemiya subconsciously looked at Wu Yejin, who was next to her. Speaking of which, I don't know where Hanakin went. Looking at the girl who was complaining endlessly, Mizuki Takemiya couldn't help but show a slight smile. Only this girl, no matter what I become, will always be by my side. Although she had an inconceivable experience, but after that Lord God left Phoenix Academy, her life went back on track and she didn't meet with any strange incidents again. Therefore, when she heard what Hua Kaiyuan said, her 15 years of worldview made her subconsciously think that Hua Kaiyuan was just dreaming. If only it was a dream. Hanakyuan Yuan looked at Mizuki Takemiya, who was not far away and was very interested in the candied haws sold by the side, and her expression was somewhat complicated. As the person who was sent by Inyang Liao to look after Mizuki Takemiya, Hanakyuan Yuan naturally knew some things about Mizuki Takemiya. The three of them continued to walk in the crowd for a while when Mizuki Takemiya suddenly stopped in his tracks. Hanakyuan Yuan and Wu Yejin followed the other party's gaze and saw Mizuki Takemiya in a daze looking at a pair of mother and daughter at a shooting stall not far away. Mummy, I want that toy. Alright, Apricot Blossom, leave it to Mummy. Boss, give me 10 more bullets. Big sis, I'm kneeling to you, please let me live. How about this? I won't take your money. You can take any one of them and leave quickly. Ignoring the crying stall owner, the warm interaction between the mother and daughter made Mizuki Takemiya reveal a faint expression of envy. Speaking of which, Mizuki Takemiya is now considered an orphan. Hanakyuan Yuan thought to herself. In addition, Mizuki Takemiya was single-handedly supporting the Phimea Financial Group, so the Yin-Yang Master Girl, who was also determined to rely on her own strength to revitalize the Hanakyuan family, felt a faint sense of companionship towards Mizuki Takemiya from the bottom of her heart. Oh, so that's how it is. Big sis, you want to play with that, right? Wu Yejin revealed an expression of sudden realization and immediately ran towards the stall in an extremely flattering manner. This made Mizuki Takemiya reveal an expression of not knowing whether to laugh or cry, while Hanakyuan Yuan helplessly slapped her forehead. This kind of girl who was born with parents couldn't understand the sadness of an orphan. Isn't this Inyang Liao? I'm so lucky to be able to meet you here. At this time, a man in his early 30s appeared out of nowhere and struck up a conversation with Mizuki Takemiya with a look of pleasant surprise. This kind of encounter is really too coincidental. It is indeed a bit of a coincidence, Mr. Wong. Mizuki Takemiya smiled slightly out of courtesy. She remembered that this person seemed to be an official of the Jiangjin government, but she couldn't remember the specific information. Hanakyuan Yuan coldly snorted with an expressionless face. Perhaps Mizuki Takemiya didn't see it, but she clearly saw this guy looking everywhere for Mizuki Takemiya from the beginning. If you don't mind, there seems to be a rather grand performance on Jiangjin University's field. I don't know if I can have the honor of watching it with you? Perhaps he didn't notice Hanakyuan Yuan's attitude, but the other party still spoke quite enthusiastically. Mizuki Takemiya originally subconsciously wanted to refuse, but after thinking about the possibility of an investment project with the Jiangjin government, after hesitating for a moment, he still agreed. Just as they were about to call Wu Yejin to move to the field together, the density of the surrounding people suddenly increased by a lot. Mizuki Takemiya was just an ordinary girl. Even with Hanakyu and Yuyuan's escort, it was still difficult for her to move in the crowd, and she was even bumped a few times. Sorry. After once again brushing past a young man with a somewhat subtle hairline, the other party's voice entered her ears. This caused the girl's heart to fiercely jump, as if there was a trace of lightning streaking across her heart. She abruptly turned her head around. The young man who brushed past her also seemed to have realized something, and almost at the same time he turned his head around. But at that moment many people drilled out from the side while crossing the entire road. They also blocked their line of sight so they couldn't see anything. Mr. Wong, Mizuki Takemiya turned around and pointed in the direction that the middle-aged man who invited her disappeared, then asked, "What's the building in that direction? Is there any activity there?" "That's Jiangjin University's auditorium that was just renovated not long ago." "If it's an activity," the other party thought for a bit, then said uncertainly, "I think there's a beauty contest." "Then let's go there." Mizuki Takemiya made up her mind and said decisively, Chapter 318. Lunch. During lunch, even though Mo Lee's face was expressionless, everyone could feel her high spirits. Even her twin ponytails seemed to have sensed her master's aura and started to move even though there was no wind. She's already eaten so much, yet she's still looking forward to lunch. Su Xinxing sighed helplessly as he returned to the classroom after making sure that there were no zombies or skeletons left behind. On the other hand, Jiang Yu was sitting in a corner with an ashen face. If this was a manga, one could probably see a rice cake-shaped soul floating out of the girl's mouth. Although Jiang Yu herself was a soul. According to Qin Xingyan, Jiang Yu's car was severely damaged during the previous incident, which caused the girl's mental state to deteriorate. Su Xinxing couldn't help but be a little surprised. He thought that with Mo Lee here there shouldn't be any problems. He didn't expect Jiang Yu to still be slightly injured. It seemed that he had to have a more accurate assessment of the enemy's strength in the future. He couldn't be so blindly optimistic. By the way, the other two maids in the coffee shop, namely Chihaya Fukuyama and Asahi Sakura Kanji, had already gone out to rest because it was time for their shifts. Yu Tu, who was sent by Chang Shaoxian, was asked by Su Xinxing to go with Cui Yingying to temporarily hand over the black cat that was caught during the previous incident to Hecate and Artemis. Sorry about the lunch situation, there's a slight problem. At this time Hosey, who was in charge of the back, came to Su Xinxing's side with a smile. He stretched out his right hand and separated his thumb and index finger slightly to show that the problem wasn't serious. Because the coffee shop's business is too good, the kitchen is already in a mess just to satisfy the customers' orders, so lunch isn't ready yet. Why don't you wait a little longer? Wait until there are fewer customers. Su Xinxing, who had snuck out to eat a bunch of snacks, didn't care, but Jasmine turned her head when she heard this. She stared at the monkey with her cold eyes, causing the monkey's hair to stand on end, and he subconsciously took 2 steps back. Although the monkey himself didn't know why a mere young girl's gaze could be so intimidating. Customers. Emily raised her hands as if she was calling to the sky. Just destroy them. Stop it. Su Xinxing gave her a karate chop, causing the girl to squat down and cover her head with her hands. She was still angry, but she still puffed up her cheeks. The surrounding customers who didn't know the depth of the situation shouted, so cute, Lolas are the best, and so on because of the girl's angry actions. Only Su Xinxing secretly sighed in relief. Just a moment ago, there was a violent spatial disturbance in the stratosphere above Jiangjin University. Don't you know about family planning? Hosey looked jealous. Su Xinxing thought for a moment, then said solemnly, my father would occasionally go in and out of the private places of some noble old women, and in order to let the treasures that inherited their imprints appear in front of people, he worked hard until his death. The identity of a woman who could have a tomb was definitely quite noble, and his own tomb was indeed a private place of the ancient people. Wasn't it his father's duty as an archaeologist to let the antiques with the information of the dead see the light of day? Well, there was no problem with this explanation. Su Xinxing nodded, quite proud of his ability to express himself. Far away in an ancient tomb in Bavaria, Su Shinxing's father sneezed and muttered to himself, "Did I catch a cold?" Then he once again immersed himself in research and exploration. Faster, is your father? Hosey was shocked. Oh, he would occasionally go in and out of the private places of some old men. Su Shinxing added, "What exactly does your father do?" Hosey was confused. Chapter 319. When Jiang Yu and Mo Li arrived at the empty classroom next door, they stared at the kitchen utensils and were at a loss of what to do. "Anyway, let's peel the potatoes first." Jiang Yu thought for a moment, then took out the potatoes from the pile of ingredients and prepared to peel them. Mo Li thought for a moment, then threw the carrots into the trash can. "Stop," Jiang Yu said seriously, "being picky is bad for your health. I don't need nutrients." Mo Li also answered seriously, "So it's okay if you don't eat. Is that so?" Jiang Yu tilted her head in confusion. "Yes, even if you ask the landlord, he'll say the same thing." Mo Li continued to talk nonsense with a serious face. However, Jiang Yu clearly hadn't seen Mo Li's sinister intentions and was easily fooled. "Okay, then can you peel potatoes?" "Understood, Commander." Mo Li saluted, then carried the potatoes to the chopping board. Jiang Yu planned to learn from the boys in the kitchen and wash the rice. Although the girl usually wore a large cap and her hair was tied into a bun at the back of her head, because she needed to wear a maid outfit this time and wear a KTU shawl on her head, her hair was let down this time. Her beautiful black hair hung down to her waist. Although her figure was obviously more youthful than Jasmine's, when paired with her long hair, the young girl who was preparing to wash the rice by the sink looked like an oriental woman with an intellectual beauty. Jiang Yu had just filled the rice cooker with water when she heard a clang from Mo Li's side, like the sound of steel colliding. "What's wrong?" Jiang Yu turned her head, her long hair swinging over her shoulders and sliding down her shoulders like tassels. Rather than calling it a curved blade, it would be better to call it a kitchen knife that had a chunk of the middle of the blade chipped off. After a moment of silence, she answered in all seriousness, "Potato surprisingly hard." "Who are you kidding? You only cut your own hand, didn't you?" If Su Shinxing or Qin Xingyan were here, they would probably say something like that. However, Jiang Yu wasn't the kind of girl who was good at complaining or dealing with interpersonal relationships. After blaming herself for the accident for a few seconds, she said to Mo Li, "Then Sergeant Mo Li, you wash the rice. I'll peel the potatoes." "Understood, Marshal." Mo Li saluted again, then switched places with Jiang Yu and ran to the pool. Pulling her hair back, Jiang Yu wiped her hands on her maid apron and noticed that her palms were starting to turn transparent. But she wasn't discouraged. Instead, she went straight to the chopping board and tried to peel the potatoes. At least before she disappeared, she wanted to try more of her previous life, or should I say car life. She wanted to try her best to help Su Shinxing and the others with something she had never experienced before. However, this technique wasn't as simple as it seemed. Although it wasn't as serious as Mo Li's, Jiang Yu still cut her fingers a few times. Fortunately, as the death god of the train, Jiang Yu, who basically existed as a spirit, did not have the ability to bleed. This made her feel relieved but also a little disappointed. Just as Jiang Yu was about to finish peeling the potatoes, there was a small cry of surprise from Mo Li's side. "What happened, Private Mo Li? Your military rank dropped." "It happens all the time. Please don't mind the details, Private Mo Li." The rice ran away. Jasmine guiltily waved the rice cooker in her hand. Originally, there were about 5 teaspoons of rice inside. The rice cooker came with a small plastic cup which was about 1 teaspoon, but now there was less than half of it left. It seemed that when he poured the water, he accidentally poured out the rice as well. And it seemed that he poured out a lot of rice. "It's okay." Jiang Yu paused for a moment, then showed a gentle smile. "We'll just ask Mr. Shinxing for some more." Saying this, Jiang Yu picked up a small bowl and planned to go back to the coffee shop to ask Su Shinxing for some rice from the kitchen there. At this time, she felt a gentle tug on the hem of her skirt. The girl turned her head and saw Mo Li pulling on the hem of her skirt with his head half lowered. "Sorry." Mo Li apologized softly, looking a little depressed. Jiang Yu didn't say anything. In response, she gently stroked Mo Li's hair. This action made Missouri Li close his eyes comfortably, looking like a puppy being caressed by its owner. It was very cute. "That's what happened. We don't have any more rice." After listening to Jiang Yu's story, Su Shenxing looked at the two girls in surprise. He didn't know why their relationship suddenly became better. Emily was the type that strangers couldn't get close to. Other than Su Shenxing and Cui Yingying, even the residents of Sakura Apartments were probably only slightly better than strangers in her heart. Then he said righteously, "If that's the case, then I can only steal the rice from the class next door. Don't go." Speaking of which, this is the first time I've heard such a righteous declaration. The four-eyed class leader who was talking to Su Shenxing pushed up his glasses and ridiculed. "Can't I? If that's the case, then I can only steal. I mean borrow the rice from our biggest competitor, Chang Xiaoxian's class." Su Shenxing continued to speak righteously. "Stop, are you planning on turning our class into the public enemy of all males? For lunch, what does it matter even if I have to become the enemy of the whole world? Although it sounds cool, it has a lot to do with it. Don't make such a big sacrifice just for a meal." The four-eyed class leader's face was full of exhaustion. "If it's rice, we have a lot here. After all, compared to curry rice, the customers prefer cakes and things like that. Can't we go cause trouble in that class?" Su Shenxing turned his face and spat. "Just how much do you care about that little bit of credit?" The four-eyed class leader tried to pull the conversation back to the original topic. "In short, we'll prepare the rice. Now let's go back to our previous topic." "Speaking of which, what were we talking about?" Su Shenxing asked with a lazy face. "You forgot so quickly? I really don't know what to do with you." The four-eyed class leader revealed a fake smile that couldn't be any more fake. "Simply put, it's for you to dress up and participate in a beauty pageant. Fuel, root." After Su Shenxing knocked down the opponent with a rising dragon fist, he ran to the kitchen to get some rice under the gaze of the diners and other people in the class. Then he brought Mo Li and Jiang Yu back to the empty classroom next door and started to make lunch with the two girls. Chapter 320. Curry rice wasn't a difficult dish. Although traditional curry seemed to require a variety of spices and a rather complicated process to make with curry cubes, this food was extremely fast and simple. You just need to cut the ingredients into pieces, stir-fry them a little, and then throw them into the pot with curry cubes without adding any seasoning. Add water to stew and finally pour the stewed curry juice over the rice, and it would be a national-level home-cooked food. By the way, although Su Shenxing preferred beef curry because the school, or rather their class, only prepared steak, there were no curry ingredients, so in the end, they could only use some ham and chicken breasts as ingredients. "By the way, where did the carrots go?" Su Shenxing looked at the bag of ingredients suspiciously. Jiang Yu looked at Mo Li, who was looking at the ceiling and whistling tunelessly. Under the guidance of the experienced driver Su Shenxing, everything went on in an orderly manner. It didn't take long for the freshly baked curry rice to be ready. Oh, it's really good. Let me try it first." Su Shenxing couldn't wait to pick up the spoon. "Landlord, wait." But Mo Li stretched out his hand and made a pause gesture, stopping Su Shenxing's action. "This is made by me, so I should eat first. Don't mess around, I'm the guide, okay? No matter what, I should try it first and evaluate how well you guys did it." "Try it. Try it before it's done, it's too late now." "Ah. Don't bite my hand, and don't bite my head." Jiang Yu looked at the interaction between the two and couldn't help but let out a soft laugh, which made Su Shenxing and Mo Li stop fighting. The two of them looked at each other and then nodded at the same time as if they had a tacit understanding. Since most of the curry rice was made by Jiang Yu, let Jiang Yu eat first, right? Su Shenxing suggested first. Jiang Yu's eyes widened as if she couldn't keep up with Su Shenxing's train of thought. "I agree. General, please speak first." Mo Li also crossed his arms and pretended to be mature. At the same time, Su Shenxing also scooped a plate of curry rice for Jiang Yu and placed it in front of her. "Actually, it's fine if you eat first, Mo Li." Jiang Yu smiled and pushed her plate in front of Mo Li. "Is that really okay?" It's fine. I can endure it." Mo Li tried his best to cover up his drooling appearance. Jiang Yu couldn't help but laugh at his serious expression. "Since that's the case, I won't hold back." Jiang Yu picked up the spoon, but she wasn't in a hurry to eat. Her wine-red eyes looked at Su Shenxing, and then she bowed slightly to the latter. "I can't stand up anymore. Mr. Shenxing, I really have to thank you this time. To be able to participate in such a lively event, to be able to play with so many people, to be able to experience such a pleasant game, I'm really, really, really happy. Although it wasn't the first time Su Shinxing received someone's gratitude in the past, people thanked him either because he defeated monsters or because he saved the world. Once or twice was fine, but after so many times he always felt a little empty. But it seemed to be the first time Jiang Yu thanked him purely for a happy experience. This kind of gratitude didn't mix with fear of Su Shinxing's terrifying strength, only pure gratitude. This gratitude was so pure that even a thick-skinned guy like Su Shinxing felt a little embarrassed. Then Jiang Yu showed Emily a warm smile. Also, it was very pleasant to cook with little Emily. This is the first time I've cooked. Although it was a little uneasy and there were some small failures in the process, but it's really good to have little Emily by my side. So I have to thank you too, little Emily. Emily stood up expressionlessly, ran behind Su Shinxing, and then buried his face in Su Shinxing's back. Jiang Yu showed a puzzled expression. Don't mind her, she's just a little shy. Su Shinxing seemed to know something. He stared at Jiang Yu sitting opposite him and said softly, hurry up and try the meal you and Emily cooked together. Yes, Moli, Mr. Shinxing and I worked hard to cook together. It must be delicious. The smile on Jiang Yu's face became even gentler. She used a metal spoon to scoop up a spoonful of rice dipped in curry juice and put it into her mouth. Of course it's delicious. The next moment the metal spoon fell on the table with a tinkling sound. Su Shinxing was silent. Opposite him, Jiang Yu had already disappeared, leaving behind only the maid outfit that still carried the fragrance of a young girl and some warmth. Originally, Jiang Yu had been conserving her energy for so long, and could only squeeze out enough energy to last for a day. If this day could pass peacefully, then Jiang Yu should be able to last until the end of the school anniversary celebration. But she didn't expect that kind of thing to happen during the school anniversary celebration. In order to help everyone, Jiang Yu not only summoned her original body, but also flew in the sky with everyone for a long time. This action obviously used up a lot of Jiang Yu's energy. After everything was settled, after Su Shinxing threw Jiangjin University from the underworld back to the modern world, Jiang Yu's energy was already somewhat lacking. Being able to last until now was already relying on the girl's obsession to express her gratitude to Su Shinxing. When she had completed her obsession, her strength had naturally been completely exhausted. Even if it was her last wish, which was to personally taste the curry rice that she and Jasmine had collaborated on, she was no longer able to do so. Landlord, Emily, who still had his face buried behind Su Shinxing's back, said in a muffled voice, Jiang Yu, did she go back? Yes, she went back first. Will we meet again in the future? Of course we will. I want to learn how to make curry by myself. Didn't you always hate learning how to do housework? When we meet again I want to make curry for her. Then let me make it clear in advance, I have very strict requirements for cooking. It's okay, I'm very confident in the speed at which I give up. Wait, this place isn't something to be proud of, right? Just like that, the two bickered for a while in the empty classroom. Then they all fell silent at the same time. Su Shinxing picked up the metal spoon that Jiang Yu dropped on the table, scooped up a spoonful of curry rice and put it into his mouth. Isn't this not bad? Chapter 321. After lunch, Su Shinxing and Emily returned to the maid cafe. Chihaya Fukuyama and Asahi Sakurakanji, who were on break, had already returned. In addition, there was also a small figure running around the table. Although he couldn't take on the responsibility of paying the bill, he had no problem serving tea. Ah, brother. Seeing Su Shinxing and Emily, the little guy cheered and rushed over. Su Shinxing hurriedly grabbed the cup of drink that the little guy was holding at a speed that was indiscernible to the human eye. He poured all the liquid back into the cup and placed it on top of Emily's head before catching Chiketsu. Oh, Chiketsu, you're already here. How do you feel? Did you have fun here? Su Shinxing said with a pleasant expression. Molly, on the other hand, gave Su Shinxing a look that said, Landlord, just you wait. Then, in order to keep the drink on her head from falling, she opened her arms to maintain her balance and staggered into the house. Yes, it was very interesting. Chiketsu showed a sunny and cheerful smile. It was completely impossible to associate him with the somewhat gloomy-looking kid from half a month ago. Those uncles took good care of me. Therefore, All the boys who were secretly hiding behind the door of the kitchen storage room and eavesdropping on the two's conversation all looked like they had received a huge blow. Right where Song-yu? Su Shinxing remembered that Song-yu called him and said that she was going to pick up Mo-lee. Song-yu? Sister said that she had something to do, so she left after dropping me off here. Chiketsu answered honestly. Kisuke, that guy actually wants to defeat me and steal my credits. Su Shinxing looked indignant. I don't think that's the case. Chihaya Fukuyama, who was listening to their conversation, showed a helpless expression. At this moment, two figures appeared at the door. Asahi Sakurakanji instinctively went to greet them. Welcome. Are you the two of you? The leader didn't answer. Instead, he looked around the classroom. When he saw Su Shinxing, he pointed at him and said to Asahi Sakurakanji, Sorry, I have something to discuss with that student. When that person pointed at Su Shinxing had already sensed it. He turned around and discovered that it was actually the two moon goddesses by Chang Xiaoxian's side. Did something happen again? So he asked Chiketsu to continue helping them. He walked straight to them and asked. When Huitan was escorting the black cat, she was sneakily attacked by it and fainted. Now Milady has sent her to the infirmary. The suspicious black cat took the opportunity to escape. Hecate explained the situation to Su Shinxing in a low voice. When she talked about the tragic experience of you two, she couldn't help but shake her head with an angry look. I heard from Milady that you have a kind of enchantment that can restrict creatures from escaping a certain range, so I want to ask you to help me activate the enchantment to prevent it from escaping this school. This way it will be easier for us to capture it. Enchantment? Oh, that. Su Shinxing remembered the blessing of the Holy Land he activated in the alternate space of the moon world. He nodded in understanding, then scratched his head awkwardly. Sorry, I can't do that. Why? Artemis, who was standing behind Hecate, did not expect to be rejected. She was much more impatient than Hecate, so her voice suddenly became louder and attracted a lot of attention. Fortunately, she quickly noticed this and said in a low voice, If we let that thing run around, it might cause the same result as before. Although we were lucky to be able to deal with it before the ordinary people noticed, I'm afraid we won't be so lucky again. No matter where we are, this kind of situation is considered a big deal, right? In terms of protecting the peace of this city, you and Milady have the same interests, don't you? No, I'm not rejecting your request for any other reason. In fact, my blessing is that the enchantment you mentioned is a little special. It can't be set too precisely. If the power of the other party belongs to the evil side, it won't be a problem. As long as it specifies that evil powers are not allowed to pass through, it'll be fine. Su Shinxing shrugged. But as far as I know, the power of the cat is neutral, so it's a little awkward. If we ban all of them from leaving the school and lock them up in the school, it'll cause a lot of trouble. Is that so? That's troublesome. Hecate showed a distressed expression. Anyway, you should go and find Qin Xingyan first. I remember her class is on the 3rd floor and her class is doing a haunted house program. He might have a solution. Su Shinxing couldn't come up with any good ideas because his perceptive ability was relatively weak. After I'm done here, I'll go and patrol the school again to prevent that guy from causing trouble. That's the only thing we can do now. Hecate sighed. Sorry to bother you. After saying that, she left with Artemis. She seemed to be worried about the current situation. As Su Shinxing had only returned to the present world from the underworld after everything was more or less settled, he wasn't too sure about the cat. He only knew that it seemed to have shown signs of resistance at the beginning, but after being caught by Jasmine and the others a second time, it didn't seem to have any intention of resisting or escaping, and was obediently locked up. He didn't expect that the cat would suddenly attack when Moon Rabbit Huitan sent it to Chang Xiaoxian. After defeating Huitan, it escaped. Speaking of which, although Su Shinxing didn't think much of it, according to Qin Xingyan, Huitan's strength should be very strong among the practitioners. It should be second only to those who have stepped onto the path of the Golden Core. Artemis and the others later verified this saying. They said that Huitan's original body, or one of the original inhabitants of the inner moon, was much stronger than the ordinary moon rabbit. Even if it was a sneak attack to be able to defeat and knock out the silly moon rabbit, it seemed that the black cat's strength was not weak. At the very least, Qin Xingyan and Chihaya Fukuyama couldn't beat it. Sure enough, I'll go there myself. Su Shinxing sighed. While lamenting his busy life, he decided to use a slightly faster speed to wander around the school. Chapter 322. Law Department Social Studies Class 4. As a relatively unpopular subject, Jiangjin University's teaching quality was not particularly good. There were not many people majoring in social studies. Even together with some of the other faculties in the law department, there were only 4 classes. Qin Xingyan, who majored in classical and modern sociological theory, was naturally one of them. However, unlike in Sakura's apartment in her own class, the girl not only wore glasses to cover up her delicate face, but also kept a very low profile and tried not to attract attention. Because she had used some tactics to reduce her presence, her inconspicuous plan had been quite successful so far. During the school anniversary celebration, their class decided on a haunted house project, and the girl was forgotten by the rest of the class. When the school anniversary was about to start, the class monitor inadvertently found out that she was not assigned a task when he looked at the class roster. This also caused the girl's plan to sneak off to help Su Xinxing on the day of the school anniversary to go down the drain. In short, in a situation where there was no time to make the girl pretend to be a ghost, the class organizer simply gave her a sheet with 2 holes dug out to pretend to be the most classic ghost. The girl, who was slightly dissatisfied with this, added some special effects to her ghost, or rather the sheet, when guests came in and successfully scared the guests out of their wits. This made the girl's mood slightly better. Just as she was considering whether she should leave the flying sword here to continue pretending to be a ghost and sneak off to Su Xinxing's classroom, the voice of her class ticket seller came from outside the door. Qin Xingyan, someone is looking for you. This made Qin Xingyan slightly stunned, not knowing who was looking for her. When she walked out of the room and saw the other party, she could not help but feel even more strange. It's not convenient to talk here, Song Yu, who had changed into a maid's outfit, said to Qin Xingyan generously. Let's talk on the rooftop. Qin Xingyan thought about it and felt that this was a good opportunity to sneak off, so he agreed without hesitation. Although the rooftop of Jiangjin University's teaching building was surrounded by barbed wire, there was still a certain degree of danger. Therefore, during a school anniversary celebration, which was a rather chaotic event, the door to the rooftop would be locked. However, for Qin Xingyan, this kind of door lock was not a problem. Araho, open. The female cultivator poked the door lock with her flying sword, and the door leading to the rooftop opened with a creak. Is this how the lock-picking incantation of our dynasty feels? Song Yu stared blankly. No, you just need to stab. I added this incantation because I felt that it was too lonely to just do it. Qin Xingyan, who had no idea that he had unintentionally stood the goddess up for 2 months, answered seriously, don't mind it. The 2 of them went up to the rooftop just like that. The rooftop in winter was quite cold and lonely. The cold wind blew, making Song Yu's maid dress and Qin Xingyan's sheet dance with it. Standing on the rooftop, they could vaguely hear the sound of hawking from the atrium. However, because it was a little far away, this kind of ethereal sound made people feel that the rooftop and the lively campus below were 2 different worlds. So, Miss Song Yu, why are you looking for me? Although they met quite frequently at Sakura apartment, to be honest, Qin Xingyan and Song Yu did not have much interaction. Therefore, this time Song Yu came back to find him, which surprised Qin Xingyan. Do you know that there will be a beauty contest in the auditorium in the afternoon? Song Yu took a deep breath and then slowly exhaled. The cold air made her exhaled white breath clearly visible. She did not keep him in suspense but said seriously, I've heard about this from my classmates. Qin Xingyan nodded, but he did not know why she wanted to talk to him about this. In addition, although it was not an important matter and he did not know what people outside the school thought about this beauty contest, the students of Jiangjin University all thought that the beauty contest champion would definitely be taken away by Chang Shaoxian. Even Qin Xingyan thought so. I will participate, Song Yu said seriously. Her long hair fluttered in the cold wind, coupled with her bright eyes. As an ordinary person, even Qin Xingyan was intimidated by her momentum and felt a little pressure. Good luck. Qin Xingyan, who was still a little confused, could only give a very formulaic answer. Then I will confess to Mr. Su Xinxing during the contest. However, Song Yu's next words made Qin Xingyan completely confused. Are you kidding? After a while, Qin Xingyan asked in disbelief. I'm serious. Song Yu shook her head. But, senior now. Qin Xingyan frowned and wanted to say something. However, he was interrupted by Song Yu. I know. After spending some time with him, I vaguely feel that there is someone in his heart. But that person is not here. But it's his business that he likes someone, and it's my business that I like him. So, I want to confess to him. This is not contradictory, is it? Is that so? Qin Xingyan was a little confused by her words. The reason why I'm saying this to you is that the registration for the beauty contest is not over yet. I don't plan to sneak away. Song Yu looked at Qin Xingyan. If you want, you can sign up now. I'll pass. Qin Xingyan smiled bitterly and shook his head. This kind of thing is not suitable for me. Well, although other people don't know, I know that when you're around him, you emit bright colors and dazzling expressions on your face. Song Yu did not let her go so easily. She pressed on. You also like him, don't you? I don't know. Qin Xingyan shook his head. But if I have to choose someone to be my cultivation partner, I think it must be senior. Then it's settled. Song Yu smiled. So, you should also participate in the beauty contest. But I refuse. Hey. She had already said so much. Under normal circumstances, shouldn't she just agree to participate? Cultivators should stand at the back. The dazzling stage is not suitable for me. Qin Xingyan shook his head. I'll cheer for you. Even if I sneak away. No, even if I snatch him away, it won't matter? Song Yu stared at Qin Xingyan seriously. Snatch him away? Why do you look so confused? Do you think that I'll definitely fail? Looking at Qin Xingyan's confused face, the serious atmosphere that Song Yu had worked so hard to create suddenly disappeared. No, what I mean is, even if Miss Song Yu and Senior are together, it won't affect me in any way, right? Qin Xingyan hurriedly explained. What? Isn't it normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Qin Xingyan, who had been educated in the decadent feudal society since childhood, said matter-of-factly. I'm talking about you. Stupid girl, which dynasty did you transmigrate from? Yi. Why are you suddenly angry? Chapter 323. Beauty Pageant? Chang Shaoxian looked at the student in front of her who belonged to the news agency with some embarrassment. This was the health room. Because you two fainted, Chang Shaoxian sent her here to rest. She didn't expect to be found by this group of gossipers. Yes, Chang Shaoxian classmate must be determined to win the championship, right? The surname is unknown, but the name seems to be from a tabloid called Huatian. The school newspaper reporter held a recording pen and asked with a look of excitement. Know that? I haven't decided if I want to participate in the competition, Chang Shaoxian said with some hesitation. If it was before, based on her mother's personality of liking to join in the fun, she would probably be happy to participate in this kind of activity. But after experiencing the upheaval of the month some time ago, she, who had encountered some setbacks, became a lot calmer. After encountering such a lively event, the first thing she thought about was no longer whether it was interesting or not, but whether it would be too high profile and have a negative impact on her future plans. Oh, because there are no worthy contestants. Even if I participate, I will only feel the emptiness of victory. So that's how it is, Chang Shaoxian classmate. The Huatian reporter was amazed. I didn't say that. Chang Shaoxian angrily protested. I didn't say that. Behind Chang Shaoxian classmate's reserved and modest expression, there is confidence that can be felt even without words. Is that so? Although I have suspected it for a long time. Is it all because of you that I don't have good relationships with girls? Looking at the other person who was writing rapidly, Chang Shaoxian showed a suspicious look. You're mistaken. The other person sat up straight and said with a serious expression. It's really your fault. In short, if he didn't do something to divert this guy's attention, he might really be portrayed in the school newspaper as a guy who would laugh like a queen in real life with some lingering thoughts. After a slight hesitation, the Chang Shaoxian gave up the idea of using amnesia spell, and tried to change the topic. It's rare to have a school anniversary. Compared to a beauty contest that can almost be regarded as a routine, I think it's better to make an issue out of it. Isn't it easier to attract people's attention with special news? Chang Shaoxian said in a long voice, trying to keep them in suspense. Well, for example? Sure enough, the other party showed a very interested expression. Do you have any good news topics? For example, you can take some misleading photos between men, then add a black line on the face of the person involved, and then use bold words shocking. Using something like a shocking gay scene appears in the academy as the title, it will definitely attract people's attention. As she couldn't come up with any good ideas at the moment, Chang Xiaoxian had no choice but to betray her moral integrity. Bashfully and shyly, she started to talk about the topic of fujoshi, which seemed to be quite popular at the moment. I'm not interested in ordinary gays. The other party refused without hesitation. Chang Xiaoxian felt that this sentence was enough to be the title of the school newspaper's homepage. In that case, you can add a little more hardcore elements. For example, let more people appear in the camera, how about 3x or something like that? But for her own safety, the girl continued to try to lead the other party astray. I've already written about ordinary 3x. Reporter Hu Tian said without any change in expression. Not good, this guy's situation is worse than I imagined. Shocking. School Beauty confides she is extremely interested in BL and 3x. This news? Stop. Oh. You said stop, right? Wait a minute. Yes, I heard you. Okay, right away. Okay. Reporter Hu Tian put the video back on the notebook. Look, I stopped. That's because you've already written it. Chang Xiaoxian felt that she was on the verge of hysteria. Then other than BL, what other interest do you have? The other party continued to ask calmly. BL isn't my interest. Chang Xiaoxian tried to argue, but it obviously didn't have any effect. Just when Chang Xiaoxian was about to lose control, Su Xinxing pushed open the door and walked into the health room. Hu Tian, you're bullying people again. Isn't this the boss behind Jiangjin University? Sorry for the disrespect. The school newspaper reporter looked at Su Xinxing expressionlessly. But Chang Xiaoxian noticed that the other party secretly took out the memory card from the recording pen and hid it in the back pocket of his pants as if nothing had happened. I'm just collecting materials now. Then Hu Tian continued to speak righteously. It would be better if you were just collecting ordinary materials. Because Su Xinxing had done volunteer work at the school for a period of time, he and Hu Tian, who was a member of the school newspaper, were quite familiar with each other. Because he inadvertently revealed some of his inhuman abilities when interacting with Hu Tian, he was even followed by Hu Tian. Of course, in the end, Su Xinxing resolved the matter peacefully through physical means. Because of this, although Hu Tian didn't know the details of Su Xinxing, he could understand that Su Xinxing wasn't someone that ordinary people could afford to offend. Therefore, he half-jokingly called Su Xinxing the boss behind Jiangjin University. I still have something to say to Chang Xiaoxian. You go interview the other contestants first. Su Xinxing pointed to the door and mercilessly asked him to leave. What about my freedom of interview and speech? Hu Tian asked discontentedly. Come talk to me about this when you understand what professional ethics are. Su Xinxing retorted without hesitation. Reporting what the public wants to know without fear of the powerful, isn't that the professional ethics of us journalists? No, I think that's just the interest of paparazzi and flirtatious fanatics. After driving out the paparazzi who kept complaining and wanted to create a big news story, Su Xinxing breathed a sigh of relief. Then, as if performing a magic trick, he took out a recording pen and memory card and threw it to Chang Xiaoxian. Next time, don't be so easily trapped by ordinary people. Human reporters are unexpectedly scary. Chang Xiaoxian also sighed. Then she curiously asked Su Xinxing, why are you looking for me? Mainly to ask about the cat's situation. Hecate's description is too vague, so I can't judge a lot of things. Su Xinxing paused, then continued, in addition, I want to ask you about the beauty contest. Chapter 324. For the time being, Su Xinxing did not intend to participate in the beauty pageant himself. Doing so would not only cause a mass death event comparable to a terrorist attack at Jiangjin University, but it would also awaken Su Xinxing's psychological trauma. This kind of mutual harm would not do any good. However, the four-eyed class monitor said that he had already signed up Su Xinxing. Obviously, that guy wanted to embarrass Su Xinxing, who was a winner in life. This was very awkward. Although old Su also thought about putting that guy on the stage in female clothes and letting him suffer the consequences of his own actions. However, considering the reputation of the class and the fact that he might be misunderstood as gay when he helped the other party change clothes, physics, he gave up on this idea. However, the person in charge of the beauty pageant didn't even confirm the contestant's gender before signing up. Wasn't this a bit too casual? So I want to ask if it's okay to let someone else impersonate me, right? Even if you ask me, I don't know, Chong Xiaoxian replied with a bitter face. Hey, don't you know a lot about this kind of competition? Su Shenxing said in surprise. So what do you all think of me? Chong Xiaoxian couldn't help but feel bitter. At the same time, he also regretted that he always casually participated in these kinds of activities. Hey, let's not talk about this for the time being. Su Shenxing thought about it and felt that since the review conditions of this competition were so relaxed, even if he randomly found someone to replace him, no one would find out. Even if the organizers had any objections, he could just use physical means to settle it. So he began to talk about the main topic. After the mutation just ended, I always wanted to find a chance to talk to you alone. But there were too many people in your classroom before. I don't want to experience the feeling of being surrounded by a group of people in the morning. Su Shenxing shrugged and paused for a moment. He then said, do you have any clues about the culprit behind the moon incident? About that incident, didn't the alien lady say that the culprit of the mutation was the extraterrestrial life form number 004 that she had been chasing? Chong Xiaoxian blinked his limpid eyes and said with a slightly more serious face, did you find something wrong? Su Shenxing subconsciously wanted to correct him by saying that the extraterrestrial life form was not number 004, but UK or USA. But on second thought, it did not seem to be wrong, so he replied, I didn't care much at first, but when the underworld mutated, I felt some malice against me in the underworld. This made me have a new guess. If the culprit behind the secret cultivation of the monsters on the moon who intended to invade the moon god's palace was similar to some existence in the underworld and had a considerable degree of malice against me, and during the mutation on the moon, it was not infected by 004. Instead, it took the initiative to cater to the other party's erosion in order to enhance its own strength. It doesn't seem unreasonable. In fact, if one thought about it carefully, one could more or less feel some irregularities in the moon's mutation. Would the culprit behind the scenes who had been secretly preparing for so long be so easily infected by the so-called consciousness of UK004? Even if it was UK, it had been trampled to death by Su Shenxing, leaving only some illusory consciousness. On the other hand, there was absolutely no way to cultivate such a large number of monsters in this world, and their strength was enough to threaten the safety of the Earth. However, after being infected by UK004, it only took a short period of time for those monsters to reach such a level because of the information distortion. This was obviously not right. After the enemy's attack on Su Shenxing did not take effect, the enemy took the initiative to attack the people around Su Shenxing. If it were not for the protection of the Holy Land in Sakura Apartment and Mo Li, who had unlocked a certain extent of the seal, there might have been casualties on the moon's last trip. Even the attack on Su Shenxing was full of delaying. Generally speaking, with the resources and time to cultivate so many monsters, one could cultivate fewer but stronger monsters. However, the enemy seemed to know that no matter how powerful the monsters were, they would not be a match for Su Shenxing, so they were willing to sacrifice strength in exchange for quantity. At the same time, after the mutation, they ensured that those monsters at least had the strength to destroy the Earth on their own. Su Shenxing had to spend a considerable amount of time to eliminate all of them to prevent any fish that escaped the net from running out to harm the world. If only one of these situations occurred, it could be said to be a coincidence. However, with so many of them appearing at once, in addition to the trip to the underworld, Su Shenxing also understood that there seemed to be a lack of some existence in this world that had a considerable amount of hostility toward him. He could not help but think carefully. Is that so? The young girl lowered her eyes and frowned, seeming to be thinking about something. After a while, she raised her head slightly and nodded at Su Shenxing, saying, I understand. In the future, I'll ask the moon rabbits to pay attention to whether there are any clues in the Guanghan secret realm. Hey, what I mean is that the disaster that happened to your home was probably all because of me, right? I thought you would definitely blame me. Su Shenxing said with some surprise. Because the truth of the matter is still uncertain. And even if it is true benefactor, You are the benefactor who saved my home. If it were not for you, I'm afraid that the Guanghan secret realm would have been completely scorched. As she said this, Chang Shaoxian looked like she wanted to say something but stopped. After a while, she seemed to have made up her mind and said uncertainly, "If I misunderstood, then I apologize in advance." I don't know why, although benefactor seems to be very cheerful and always seems to be full of confidence. I don't know why, but for some reason I feel that you seem to be wary of everyone other than Miss Emily and have never opened your heart to anyone. It's about time. I'm going to prepare for that beauty pageant. Su Xinxing was silent for a while, then he stood up and prepared to leave the infirmary. When he reached the door, he put his hand on the doorknob and then said in a voice that Chang Shaoxian could vaguely hear, "Isn't it easy to think of a reason to never trust anyone? Of course, that's the result of being betrayed by the person you trust the most." Because she was facing the door, Chang Shaoxian could not see Su Xinxing's expression. "I hate humans, but because of a promise, even if I hate humans, I will protect this world and the humans who are a part of this world." So, then he opened the door and stretched. "It's just a joke. I've always wanted to say such a childish line. It really does feel a lot better to say it out loud. I feel like I've become more pretentious." Then he swaggered out of the infirmary. "It's just a joke?" Chang Shaoxian repeated softly as she watched him disappear into the hallway. Chapter 325. To be honest, Su Xinxing wouldn't be surprised if he encountered such an incident in any of the Lattice worlds. After all, almost every Lattice world had a demon king who was killed by him or reformed physically by him. Even if those demon kings who survived didn't have any ideas, their subordinates might feel that it wasn't satisfying to go home and farm after being idle for so long, so it was normal for them to want to cause trouble to get back at him. But in this world, Su Xinxing didn't do something as grand as killing a demon king. If he had to say something, it was just a Emily waiting for him to feed it. Moreover, Su Xinxing felt that in this world, other than the Centauri rebels who were destroyed by him, the Takamaji Harafuso gods who were destroyed by him, the Dansho mountain monsters who were destroyed by him, and the underworld creatures who were almost destroyed by him, he didn't seem to have offended anyone. Say, if only my perception was stronger. Su Xinxing, who was walking in the corridor, sighed. When he vaguely felt some malice in the underworld, Su Xinxing wanted to kill the other party with one punch. After all, his basic idea was to kill all the guys who would cause trouble, then the world would be peaceful. The problem was that he didn't find where the other party was, and at the same time he couldn't go all out to search. If he destroyed the underworld, then it would be a big joke. After all, our protagonist didn't even know how to fix a toilet, let alone a complicated thing like the underworld. Suddenly he saw a familiar back figure holding a bedsheet not far away. "Yo Xingyan." Su Xinxing's eyes lit up and he went over. "Ah, senpai." The girl turned her head and found that the person who spoke was Su Xinxing, so after a surprised expression she showed a gentle smile. "What's the matter?" "Later probably." Su Xinxing remembered that he didn't seem to know when the beauty contest started, so he changed his words and asked, "Are you free in the afternoon? Could it be Qin Xingyan's face flushed a little. He immediately put the sheet in his hand into the small sumaru pouch that he had recently obtained. Then he stood in a standard military training posture and replied excitedly, "Of course." But then the girl seemed to have thought of something and asked, "Senior, do you know that there's a beauty contest later? Xingyan, did you participate in that?" Su Xinxing couldn't help but feel a little dejected. It seemed that he had to find other scapegoats. If he really couldn't do it, then he could only make that bastard four-eyed class leader stand there obediently. If he was gay, then so be it. In any case, Su Xinxing himself would rather die than cross-dress. "No, I didn't." Qin Xingyan shook his head. "Senior, are you planning to watch that?" "Well, if you're a spectator, that's not a problem. If I'm a contestant, then please spare me." Su Xinxing added in his heart. "Please go watch that." Qin Xingyan said very seriously. "Xingyan, you're actually that crazy about that beauty contest?" Su Xinxing was shocked by the girl's attitude. He originally thought that Chang Shaoxian, who was crazy about beauty contests, wouldn't be interested in this contest. On the contrary, Qin Xingyan, who seemed to have no fate with the beauty contest, was unexpectedly crazy about it. What was this? The contrast was cute. Our protagonist was a little confused. However, this didn't prevent him from understanding that Qin Xingyan wasn't participating in the beauty contest. If you don't mind, can you be my other half? Qin Xingyan was stunned for a few seconds. Then she calmly took out a pair of black-rimmed glasses from her small sumaru pouch and placed them on the bridge of her nose. Then she used her index finger to gently push the glasses so that the lenses reflected a white light. I understand now. According to normal logic, Senior, you must have been tricked by your classmates and signed up for the beauty contest. Since you don't want to cross-dressing, you specifically asked me to do it. It's just that you don't think the normal way of asking is very interesting, so you said what you said just now to tease me. How on earth did you get so much information from my words, even though it was basically correct? I said yes. You actually said yes. But in exchange you have to go watch the beauty contest. Is that okay? That's why you're so crazy about it. Even though there was still some time before the beauty contest, there were already some performances by cultural groups in the auditorium. Plus, the beauty contest was indeed a big gimmick. When Mizuki Takemiya and the others arrived, there was already a sea of people inside. Miss Faimiya, if you think there are too many people here, I can contact the school and ask them to think of a way to persuade some people to leave. The government employee with the surname Wang said to Mizuki Takemiya with a slight frown after being stepped on by a passerby and leaving a footprint on his shiny leather shoes. No need, I like this atmosphere. Even though Mizuki Takemiya wasn't used to the feeling of being crowded, she wasn't the domineering type, so she rejected the other party's suggestion. Tis it. Ah, caught off guard, Wuyi was pushed away by the crowd. That idiot. Hanegwin cursed in a low voice. However, in a place like this where there were so many people, she couldn't just leave Mizuki Takemiya and bring Wuyi back. Mr. Wang. Even though I'm sorry to trouble you, can you help me find my assistant, Wuyi? Even though Mizuki Takemiya wanted to go out and bring Wuyi back, she couldn't let go of the inexplicable throbbing in her heart. She desperately wanted to find the person who passed by her in the crowd. Who is he? Why can't I just leave him alone when I don't have any impression of him? Chapter 326. Yuezhing Ningning was probably in the most confused and desperate period of her life. Although she had managed to achieve her goal of protecting humanity after defeating the 3 calamities and 7 calamities, the things she had lost in the process were unbearable for her. Her companions who had fought side by side, her human body, and her one and only best friend who was smiling in front of her. Because of the Holy Ring, which was an incredible existence that could grant all wishes, even the dead could be revived through it. That was why Yuezhing Ningning was able to remain calm after witnessing the deaths of her friends one after another. However, in that incident not long ago, the Holy Ring was shattered into pieces by a little girl in this world. Yuezhing Ningning, who had never thought that such a thing would happen, was stunned. She did not regain her senses even after being caught by Aton and the others. Fortunately, the girl was someone who had experienced many storms in her original world. Her will was much stronger than ordinary people. After being stunned for a long time, she finally regained her senses. She took advantage of the time when Hui Tan was flustered and distracted by someone to directly escape the other party's capture. She also used magic to knock the other party out, so that you two didn't have time to mend the pen after the sheep was lost. Fortunately, the place where Hui Tan had fainted was in a relatively lively courtyard. This allowed the Chong Shaoxian, who had received the news, to immediately rush over and send her to the healthcare room. If it was a more remote place, perhaps some indescribable things would have happened. This is really... Sereno looked at the Holy Ring fragments that Yuezhing Ningning had dug out from the flower bed and could not help but sigh. It's destroyed too thoroughly. The Holy Ring was the crystallization of the 3 great disasters and the 7 calamities after they were purified. The 3 great disasters and the 7 calamities were the manifestation of the evil intentions of humanity and the world. Therefore, it was not a problem to view the Holy Ring as the crystallization of the will of humanity and the world. To explain it in a simpler way, it was probably the crystallization of Gaia and Alea after they had sex. In short, in theory, as long as humanity was not extinct and the world was not destroyed, the Holy Ring should not have been destroyed. Even if it was physically shattered, logically speaking, it would reassemble like a water droplet. However, the reality was right in front of him. The Holy Ring had indeed been destroyed. Is there no way to fix it? Yuezhing Ningning asked indignantly. She still could not believe that the holy ring that she and Ling had been searching for so long had been destroyed so easily. Unless you can find another holy ring and make a wish to restore this holy ring. The hat replied, but rather than an answer it sounded more like a joke. After all, the holy ring is a domain beyond our ability to interfere with. In other words, there was no normal repair method. Are you kidding me? Yuezhing Ningning's last bit of hope was gone, and her determination crumbled. She fell to the ground and cried. If that's the case, Ling and the rest. Why did I fight all this time? Looking at his partner who used to bury his disappointment and depression deep in his heart and always tried to smile, in pain and sadness, Sereno the wizard hat fell silent. Ah, my first master. Was it because of this that you decided to evaporate your entire existence, just so that humans could survive for thousands of years? Perhaps there's one last way. After a long while he seemed to have made up his mind and said slowly. What? The girl sobbed and could not even complete her sentence. What? The holy ring was born from the 3 great disasters and 7 calamities. There's a certain causal relationship between the two. Sereno continued in a low voice. If we can awaken the evil in humans, we might be able to regenerate them on the basis of these fragments. No. The girl sniffed and refused without hesitation. After all, the reason why magical girls like them existed was to fight against the 3 great disasters and 7 calamities. It wasn't easy to defeat them. We definitely can't awaken the 3 great disasters and 7 calamities. What if we only awaken one of the weaker 7 calamities? Even in your current state you should be able to defeat the 7 calamities that were born, right? Sereno explained patiently. Besides, have you forgotten that the previous 3 great disasters were destroyed by the powerhouses of this world? You should know that that guy can even destroy something like the holy ring regardless of the difference in status. If it's just the 7 calamities. But Yuezhing Ningning still felt that something was wrong. It should be said that her instincts as a magical girl made her feel that something was wrong. However, the idea of repairing the holy ring put her in a dilemma. Moreover, Sereno was right. There was a powerhouse in this world that could instantly kill the amalgamation of the 3 great disasters, although she did not know why that powerhouse looked like a little girl. Even if the 7 calamities really went out of control, it should not cause too much of an impact. Hurry up and make up your mind, partner. Sereno said softly. After the holy ring is broken, the power it contains will gradually dissipate. Once it's lost too much, even if we really want to do it, we won't have enough magic power to do it. Really, it's okay? After a while, the girl asked in a somewhat cowardly voice. I promise. Sereno answered solemnly. Then his voice softened, making the girl's ears itch. No matter what, I'll walk with you to the end until what? As Sereno's voice was a little soft, the girl did not hear it clearly. Don't make me say such shameful words a second time. Sereno's voice returned to its usual tone. You don't have much magic power now, so even if you really want to do it, you only have one chance. Do you understand? Oh. Although she felt that something was wrong, the girl still nodded subconsciously. Then close your eyes, maintain the position of touching the holy ring and feel my guidance. I'll guide you to touch the forbidden magical domain. The girl did as Sereno said. She used her little claws to step on the remains of the holy ring, then closed her eyes and meditated to touch the hat on her head with what little magic power she had left. After a while, the girl suddenly opened her eyes, revealing a look of disbelief. Sereno, you. Hey partner, do you know why there are 7 magic devices passed down from the first one? Sereno's voice became a little faint, but he did not seem to intend to wait for the girl's answer. He continued, that's to deal with the 7 calamities. Unfortunately, she did not expect the appearance of the 3 calamities, which caused the 7 calamities to reappear in the world with the passage of time. Our mission became to guide the magical girl to protect the existence of mankind with our lives. Let's not talk about what happened after that. In a sense, the 7 magic devices and the 7 calamities are 2 sides of the same coin, or you can say that we're the vessels of the 7 calamities. Now that the 7 calamities have been defeated, to reawaken them, we need a heavyweight sacrifice. From this point of view, no one is more suitable than me. In the long years I've seen many people and things. I've changed partners again and again, and after witnessing the deaths of my partners again and again, I've gradually become numb to it. Unlike Enolive, the name of the grimoire of the 7 magic devices, and the others, I'm more pessimistic. Sometimes I even feel that instead of repeating this endless cycle, I'd rather let mankind be destroyed. But when I met you, I realized it. You're not quite the same as my previous partners. Although you're also reckless, sunny, and cheerful, you're much stronger. You even make me feel like I've returned to the side of my first master. That's why I have to protect you. Don't worry. Even if my consciousness dissipates, the magic device Sereno will still be by your side. If I had said this in the beginning, you wouldn't have agreed to use this method. Although I don't feel the need to say it, I still want to thank you. The days of adventuring with you have been very enjoyable. I haven't felt this good in a long time. Come, let's defeat the last of the 7 calamities. I have a premonition that this time, it might really be the last time. The future of mankind without Haze is finally coming true. That's what you're looking forward to, Master. Chapter 327. Yuezhing Ningning did not know if the Master Sereno was referring to was her or the first magical maiden. However, she could clearly feel that Sereno had lit up his artificial spiritual lattice with the magic of the holy ring. Then, a black mud-like substance that ordinary people could not see gushed out from the wreckage of the holy ring. If it was in the past, Yuezhing Ningning would have thrown away this time bomb in her hands without hesitation. No, it was something that was even more dangerous than a normal time bomb. However, after losing her most trusted Sereno, the girl was completely flustered. Furthermore, Sereno's artificial spiritual lattice was still being melted by the magic of the holy ring. Once it was completely melted, it would be irreversible. Perhaps after repairing the holy ring she could make a wish to bring Sereno back? Then what about Ling and the rest? Could it be that she had to take a gamble? After reviving Ling and the rest, would the holy ring still have the power to revive Sereno? She was so flustered that she did not realize that her body had been engulfed and swallowed by the black mud-like substance. After a while, the girl felt as if her consciousness had sunk into water, and she slowly disappeared amidst the cold weightlessness. When she regained her senses, she realized that she was standing in a pitch-black space. She could not see anything here, and she could not tell up from down, left from right. Without any reference point, even the concept of time was blurred. The only thing that was worth rejoicing over was that her body did not feel like a cat that she was gradually getting used to, but like a normal human. She did not know how long she had been floating in this space. In front of her there seemed to be a few figures. At first, Yuezhing Ningning was a little surprised and wary, but this quickly turned into an unparalleled surprise. Ling. Girl. She broke down in an instant. If her tear ducts could still work normally, she would have cried out loud and vented all her grievances, sadness and pain to her close friends. Isn't this Ningning? We've been waiting for you here for a long time. Come quickly, come quickly. A familiar voice rang in her ears and she could not help but be immersed in it. Yuezhing Ningning, who was floating towards her friends, did not notice that the faces of hurt friends seemed to be shrouded in fog and she could not see them clearly. I knew you would come. In the backstage of the auditorium, in the preparation room for the contestants, Song Yu saw Qin Xingyan push open the door and had an "I knew it" expression on her face. Qin Xingyan's original intention was to follow Su Xinxing's instructions and deal with the competition, so she only came in her maid outfit. If it wasn't for the fact that it was too insincere to wear a school uniform or casual clothes, Qin Xingyan might have come in her normal clothes. Unlike Qin Xingyan, Song Yu was dressed up a lot more beautifully. She was wearing a princess dress that was decorated with lace and tassels. Although it was not as luxurious as a trivial evening gown, it completely set off the girl's outstanding face, giving people the impression that she was a beautiful white rose in full bloom. She wore a silver necklace with a large pearl around her neck. It was obvious that she had meticulously taken care of her hair. Not only did it have a beautiful hairstyle, there was also a cute and beautiful silver crown on top of the beautiful bun. These small accessories further highlighted the girl's temperament after being tempered and settled in the entertainment industry. Unless Chang Shaoxian also went on stage with makeup, even if Chang's daughter did not have any makeup on, she would not be able to compete with Song Yu at this moment. Is it because of that pearl? No, that's not a pearl. Qin Xingyan felt that the pearl inlaid in the beautiful silver necklace on Song Yu's snow-white neck was subtly familiar. At the same time he felt a hint of charm from it. However, this charm was very faint and could only be regarded as a bonus. It did not have the ability to turn something rotten into something magical. Even if Sister Feng wore it, at most it would make her look like a normal person. She would not become a goddess who was loved by all the otakus. In comparison, Qin Xingyan was much weaker. In fact, because she was rushing to the competition, she did not even put on makeup. She planned to go on stage without any makeup. The only difference was that she took off her glasses. If Song Yu wasn't around, Qin Xingyan would have been able to pull off a face-slapping plot like in most second-rate novels, where an ordinary-looking otaku would turn into a beauty after taking off her glasses. But with Song Yu's meticulous makeup, it was obviously not enough. I know that Mr. Su Shenxing is also a very important person to you. After careful consideration based on your female nature, you would never let me do such a thing. Song Yu looked at Qin Xingyan with high fighting spirit. So, I don't have to worry about anyone else. My only opponent from the beginning is you. Her words were so hot-blooded that if she added some background scenes such as volcanic eruptions, it would not feel out of place even if she was thrown into a hot-blooded manga. No. I'm really just here to represent you in the competition at Su Shenxing's request. Qin Xingyan, who was innocently implicated, did not know whether to laugh or cry. But I'm not the kind of person who would take advantage of other people's difficulties, so I've already prepared a more suitable outfit for you. Before Qin Xingyan could figure out how to explain, Song Yu took out a plastic bag from somewhere. It could be seen that there was a piece of high-end clothing inside. Even if one could only see the tip of the iceberg, one would feel that this piece of clothing was not cheap. Wait, could it be? Qin Xingyan's mouth twitched. He did not know why Song Yu suddenly became so aggressive, but he was at a loss for what to do. That's right. Only when you change into this and our conditions are equal, then the real battle will begin. Song Yu continued to shout hot-bloodedly, which even attracted the attention of some other contestants. However, she did not mind at all. Don't worry, you can absolutely trust my judgment. This outfit will definitely match you. No, that's not what I'm worried about. Qin Xingyan's mood had already changed from not knowing whether to laugh or cry to wanting to cry. Because there were other people around, she could not use the power of a cultivator to escape. In the end, she could only let out a pitiful cry. Under the gaze of other contestants, she was pulled into the changing room by Song Yu. Not long after, there were some blushing and heart-pounding moans in the changing room. As Mizuki Takemiya's temporary bodyguard, she naturally couldn't leave her side casually. But the problem was that the person in trouble wasn't a good person either. She had a considerable degree of divinity, and it wasn't an ordinary 8 million gods. She had a place in the entire Japanese mythology, the heavenly enchantress. This wasn't a small matter. After all, Wu Yejin's life information wasn't confidential. A careful investigation would reveal that she was different from Chihaya Fukuyama. She used to be just an ordinary person, and even if one traced back to her ancestors, they wouldn't be able to find any traces of gods. In other words, it was very likely that she had suddenly obtained divinity comparable to that of ordinary gods at some point in time. If it weren't for the fact that she didn't have any divine power in her body, Yin Yang Liao would probably have thought that she had already ascended to become a god. With such a precious specimen, if it weren't for the fact that Wu Yejin had an inextricable relationship with the god from Huaxiao, Yin Yang Liao would have already kidnapped her and taken her to the Liao to study carefully. Therefore, Hanakama Yuan was sent over to protect Fei Gong, and also to observe Wu Yejin to a certain extent. Miss Fukuyama, could you please take care of Fei Gong for a while? Hanakama Yuan didn't hesitate anymore, and asked Chihaya Fukuyama for help. She naturally knew that Chihaya Fukuyama also had a divinity. Putting aside his combat experience in terms of power level, he was even stronger than her, a yin-yang master who had been cultivating since childhood. Therefore, although she was a little worried, she still decided to leave Mizuki Takemiya in Chihaya Fukuyama's care. Yes, Fei Gong is also my friend. If something happens, I'll naturally protect her. Chizeo Yamanaka ignored Rueishi Imperial Concubine's curious gaze and nodded in agreement to the Onmyoji girl. Miss Fei Gong, please stay by Miss Fukuyama's side, Hanakiyama Yuan reminded Mizuki Takemiya. Wait, you said something happened to Wu Yi, right? Want to go too? Mizuki Takemiya naturally protested. Please don't give me any trouble. Hanakiyama Yuan shook her head, and then probably felt that it wasn't good to say that, so she corrected herself. Sorry, what I meant was, please don't drag me down. The meaning of these two sentences hasn't changed at all. In a sense, the latter is more hurtful. Mizuki Takemiya's retort was naturally ignored by the Yin-Yang master girl. Hanakiyama turned around and waved her hand, and a translucent silk thread shot out and tied itself to the giant chandelier on the ceiling. Then she was hung up like a marionette, and with a slight swing she easily passed through the crowd and landed outside the auditorium. Then she ran like the wind to the place where the spirit-branded retainers were destroyed amidst the crowd's cries of "Wife, come out and watch Spider-Man with me." And so on. She didn't even give the onlookers a chance to take out their phones to take pictures. After finally finding a place, Chihaya Fukuyama sighed as she looked at Mizuki Takemiya, who was worried about Hanakiyama Yuan, and Wu Yejin, who seemed a little restless. Don't worry, they'll be fine. She tried to comfort him. But this is the first time I've seen Hanakiyama look like she's facing a great enemy. Mizuki Takemiya was still a little uneasy. Don't worry, or rather, there shouldn't be any other place in the world safer than this school. Thinking of the group of superhumans in Sakura's apartment, Chihaya Fukuyama couldn't help but say this. Even if a real superhuman came to cause trouble, he would probably be punched into a pancake. In any case, in Mizuki Takemiya's worry, the beauty pageant officially began. Halfway through the beauty pageant, Chihaya Fukuyama suddenly realized that she had made a big mistake. In this beauty pageant, it seemed that someone was going to appear. Our next contestant is Su Shinshing from Class 9 of the Sinology Department. The moment the host announced the name, Mizuki Takemiya, who was still a little absent-minded, instinctively raised his head and looked at the stage without blinking. In the next moment, a girl shyly walked out from behind the stage. She was wearing an off-the-shoulder dress that had a gradient of black, vermilion, and bright red from the inside to the outside. Although the color was quite bright, it didn't appear tacky. Instead, it gave people a lively impression. The off-the-shoulder dress was decorated with light pink tulle as decoration. In addition, the matching red leather shoes added an additional feeling of cuteness to the girl. Not only that, but the girl's appearance was also quite good. Her particularly suitable warm clothes, coupled with the shy expression on her face where she bit her lower lip like a small animal, created a cute contrast that killed both men and women, causing countless people to gasp in amazement. At the same time, this also made Mizuki Takemiya show an expression as if his brain had stopped working. Sushinshin, this name. Is it a girl? After a long while, she asked Chizeo Shinshan in disbelief. Chizeo Shinshan breathed a sigh of relief and showed a weird expression. Probably. But I feel like something is wrong, other than the gender. If I have to say, Mizuki Takemiya muttered with uncertainty, hairline. The location of the accident was close to the atrium. When Hua Kaiyuan arrived, the five-leaf jinx was struggling to stand with the support of a long spear. There weren't any big wounds on her body, but she looked quite embarrassed. However, the surrounding situation was much worse. The tourists who had lost consciousness were lying on the ground in strange postures. Hana Kaiyuan even found a man with the surname Wang who was in a joking position among them. What exactly happened to make him fall into that position when he fell to the ground? Although Hana Kaiyuan was curious about this, it didn't seem like she had the time to find out. Be careful. That thing hasn't left yet, Japanese. Wu Yejin, who was holding a spear, said. It seemed that because she was exhausted and nervous, the girl unconsciously switched back to her mother tongue. What is that? Hana Kaiyuan took out the prayer beads and spell book from her backpack and carefully looked around. I'm not sure. But it looks like the resentful cat, Japanese, in the story Japanese. Oh, if it's that manga, I've also read it. Hana Kaiyuan waved her hand and dozens of paper talismans fell down like snow. The talismans formed a huge spell formation with the girl's silent chant. Unlike normal Inyang masters, Hana Kayuen's Inyang Jutsu focused more on the control of the Shikigami. After being beaten up by Moli a few months ago, she didn't stay idle and worked hard to improve her strength. Although there wasn't a huge increase in the amount of curse power, there was indeed a huge improvement in the number of spirit-branded retainers and the improvement in the number of spells. The Shikigami she planned to summon this time was the legendary Great Traveling Abyss Snake God. In theory, the Shikigami should have the ability to restrain the cat demon formed from resentment, or the Dojutsu God, against resentment. However, those two Shikigami were rare and it was difficult for a declining family like Hana Kayuan to obtain them. But compared to the cat, the giant snake is indeed more powerful. Before she finished speaking, the ground under the spell formation became like the surface of a lake. A part of the giant snake's body that was as thick as a private car emerged from the ground like a sea monster. The Great Traveling Abyss Snake God was a monster that had never revealed its true form. Even if one became a Shikigami, they still couldn't see its entire body. Without a doubt, this unknown would bring a Cthulhu-like fear to people. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.